Okay, we're calling the Washington Unified School District Board meeting to order, reconvening. And we are going to ask our Assembly Member, Kevin McCarty, to lead us in the pledge. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, very good. All right. So we go to item I, announcement of action taken in closed session. F1, Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiations, WTA, CSEA, Management, information received and reported. F2, Government Code Section 54956.95, Liability Claims, Claimant, Agency claimed against Washington Unified School District. The board voted to reject the claim, a vote of 4-1, with Trustee Pizzotti voting no. F3, Government Code 54956.9, pending or potential litigation. Conference with legal counsel, information received. 5-4, Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Superintendent, information received. Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to pull 2 items for action,
Okay.
and that would be items, lost my sticky note, 01 and 02, if we can just put that to the,
Okay, very good.
not action, I'm sorry, move it up.
Okay.
It's on action, is that correct?
Okay. All right. Any other items?
To move it to action.
Let's move it to action
Okay,
items.
to pull it off of consent and move it to
Yes,
action
move
items.
it to
Yes.
actions,
Okay,
right.
got it.
Are there any other items? Okay, very good. Okay, so now we move to communication and celebrations.
We still need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. New at this, okay. All right, very good. So can we get a motion for 01 and 02 to be pulled in?
An item on agenda.
I'm sorry.
Blue slip.
I'm sorry, I had a
Oh, there's a
I had
blue
a
slip, I'm
slip.
sorry. There is one right here. It's blue slip. Don Stauffer?
Hi, good evening, Don Stauffer. I would like to move action item R1 to the information discussion items to Q.
Okay, R1.
R1
Or I would like to ask you to do that, R1.
of discipline matrix.
Well, okay, R1 is,
Move it to discussion.
and move it to discussion, you're saying, Don?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, move it where?
Yeah, to information discussion.
Okay.
President Alcala,
Yes.
by moving a particular agenda item off of action into the information discussion section, it would take the board's ability to take any action. Should you leave it in action, the board does have options to not take action, to table, or to just discuss.
All right. So we would then leave it and have the board decide?
Like someone has a motion.
Okay. Does anyone make a motion? Okay. Being that there is no motion, we will retain R1 under action items. Thank you. Okay. So now we will move to communication and celebration.
Still have to approve.
Now we
Oh,
have
I'm
to
sorry.
approve the consent item.
Consent items, yes. Okay, consent items. So,
We move the consent items 01 and 02.
okay,
to
01 and
action.
02. Thought we'd already done that one.
To action.
Okay.
Somebody
So,
have to You
okay.
have to move it
So we're going to move, okay.
Move the agenda, yeah.
All right.
and then approve the agenda.
So, okay. So the consent agenda then?
I
You
move
make
the
a motion?
agenda,
All right.
approval of the agenda.
I
All right.
second.
Very good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, very good. Right. And I'm really anxious to start our communication celebration.
It's like, I just want to get through this.
All right, great. So Item K1, Riverbank Elementary School receives the 2017 Barona Education Grant for $5,000. And we would like at this time to welcome and introduce our Assembly Member, Kevin McCarty.
Hi, good evening. It's my first time here at the West Sacramento City Hall up here, so great to be here. And thank you for your public service, for serving on the school board here at Washington. I know you're not doing it for the glamour or for the compensation. You're doing it because you care about our community, our kids, and our schools. So thank you so much, and our student member, too. You're going to run for the assembly one day? No? Already. So I have the distinct pleasure of representing District 7 in the Assembly, which covers, of course, the city of West Sacramento. And one of the things that we get to work on sometimes is helping communities apply for grants to help neighborhoods or schools. And I came across the Barona Education Grant. It's the Barona Band of Mission Indians. And they have a program where they help local schools through a one-time contribution. And we were able to find a school here within a couple hours, actually. It was a deadline, and I really want to thank all the board, but board member Jackie Wong really helped out in a pinch to put us in touch with the superintendent and the school and the principal to fill out the form. I think I had like 2 hours to do it all. And also, of course, want to recognize our superintendent, Luna, and our principal in the back. We're going to hear from a second, Hortensia Pfeiffer. But this is a grant to focus on a school garden there at Riverbank Elementary, and I think school gardens are fabulous for a number of opportunities. One, it's you beautify sometimes an old area of the school. Two, it teaches students about where food comes from. Food doesn't always come from McDonald's or Taco Bell and so forth. It comes from the ground. And it focuses on learning in a different way. Sometimes it's important to learn outside the classroom. I'm an avid gardener myself, so I look forward to going out there and checking out the garden once it's up and going. But, these hands-on learning opportunities are things that I worked on as a city council member, community gardens with our schools, and I'm certainly proud to bring this effort to West Sacramento as well. Not to mention the efforts that we're focusing on healthy food, dealing with the obesity epidemic, and making sure that kids eat healthy foods. And if kids learn how to garden at school and maybe prepare those foods, they can certainly lead a better life and actually go home and teach their parents something too sometimes. So with that, we have a busy agenda tonight, and just wanted to come out here and say hello, and most importantly, present this check for $5,000
Wonderful.
to Riverbank Elementary School. Okay.
I want to say thank you, and I want to
Okay.
just get
Okay.
So on behalf of the staff of Riverbank, as my second year in the district, a little swag from Riverbank. We are the home of the otters, so a little otter
Otters.
pride,
Oh,
a little
beautiful.
swag. Wear it when you come out and we do our ribbon cutting.
Okay.
for our garden.
So I hold this, and maybe you hold the check.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. We'll go over here, scoot over a little bit so we can-
More swag.
Okay.
Hashtag otter pride.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We have more swag.
We have more swag.
Oh,
right
we
here.
have more
This is
swag
from
right here.
Washington Unified School
Oh,
District.
beautiful.
Fabulous
Okay,
bag, Kevin.
thank you.
It's insulated and
Make a
everything.
thing.
Oh, so it's going to come in here?
Can we have it in the middle? That would
Come on
Sure.
in.
Yeah, you hold the bag.
All right.
Okay,
sure.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I've done this before.
All right.
Come on, don't be shy. All right, on three. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Okay, don't move. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A lot of them.
Actually, Chairwoman, will you give me another few seconds? Sure. Okay, I only say this because I chair the Budget Committee overseeing education funding.
Yes.
Maybe I could talk a little about schools
Some of us
and what
have
we're
it
doing.
for you. Love to hear.
Yes, and so the budget's coming out in about a month, and based upon the early projections from the revenue estimates from the Legislative Analyst's Office, it looks like it's going to be a positive year for public school funding. We're going to be hopefully fully funding at the LCFF level, bringing more resources in our Prop 98. A couple of big things that I've been working on that hopefully will help here in West Sacramento is expanding resources for after-school programs. You may have known last year we voted on the marijuana legalization. And in the measure, it says if you vote for this measure, we'll put monies towards after-school programs. But it wasn't in the fine print, but it was in the TV commercial. So I'm going to do a bill trying to memorialize that promise. Also going to be working on expanding early education programs this year in 2018. And lastly, a big issue I want to bring to your attention is the career technical education. There's a big effort this year to make those funds permanent and actually increase the amount that's been going out to school districts. Those are three big issues that you'll be hearing about in 2018. But most importantly, we're focusing on education, the top priority in our state. So.
Great.
Alrighty. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Assemblymember.
I just wanted to appreciate you for reaching out to us. I mean, I know you have a fairly large district, and oftentimes I think people forget about us on this side of the river, so really appreciate you also taking on an intern in your office from Yolo High School.
That's right.
This summer. I know that he just raised about it. He wants to be an assembly member or senator
Okay.
just because of how you've led locally. So really appreciate that and appreciate selecting us. So thank you for your leadership on all fronts.
Yeah. And I would like to say thank you again also for the effort that you've put into this, as well as please remind your colleagues that Prop 98 was supposed to be the floor, not the ceiling. So let's keep that money coming. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to say thank you too for being here. I know I was at Riverbank not that long ago when the teachers were working really hard to get soil. And the requirements just to get clean soil was quite the hurdle. So this makes a big difference for our school, and it's very much appreciated. And I want to also remind us about Prop 51, the school facility bond. Too, we have many people who are on the queue.
Okay. Good.
That's another one we'd like to see the money from.
Yes.
All
Keep
right.
up the good work.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for all you
Happy
do.
holidays.
Thank you so much. Okay. So we will move on now to K2 school report from Stonegate Elementary School. Ben Kingsbury, principal.
How's that? A little higher. Good evening. So, good evening, Board President Kirby Gonzalez, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Luna, Cabinet, and community. Thank you all for being here. I should warn you, I practice this in my head with Sarah sitting right in the middle.
It's okay.
Is that okay? Okay. Everything else should be all set. So I want to talk about Stonegate and what's happening. And I'm starting off with our mission and how our mission connected to the district's mission. So, and I'm assuming this works kind of standardly. I just click. There's our school. Great day to be a lion. We'll sometimes hear that. So there are two parts of our mission that I want to highlight. So when we created our mission and aligned it to the district's mission. And there's 2 points that you'll see that we bolded, right? So lifelong love of learning for all students and a variety of educational experiences. And what really got that going was one word it just kept coming again and again for staff, students that we talked to, different community members, and joy was the word that came up. Right? And it was not just the joy of learning, but just the process of learning being joyful, right? And what that looks like for all the stakeholders of the community. And so those lines really got built into our mission to make that happen. All right. So our big picture, really looking at data, how does that data drive what we do? And we look at a variety of different data. So I think there's sort of standard student achievement data. We see end-of-the-year summative assessment data. We have SBAC, we have CELT. There's district writing assessments that are used formatively. But there's also a great deal of informal sort of data that we look at as well, too. So when I look at data and I think about how many people attend our PTO events, it's an important data point. How many parents do I have come to the parent-principal coffee? How many parents do I have that email me with questions, right? How many people stop and ask questions? How many people do we have at parent conferences? So those all become data points. Some of my favorite data points is when I'm in the office and I see a parent come in to check their kid out early, and then they find out that their kid is in VAPA, and they say, no, I'll wait, right? And we've had parents wait in our office half an hour, 45 minutes, so their kid can finish VAPA because they feel like it's such a good experience for them. And so, again, those really powerful data points connected to joy. All right, talking about different parts of our LCAP. So first one, 21st century skills. So there's a great deal that's happening just at a ground level because of Dream Team. I've got a great deal of Dream Team members. So I'm kindergarten, first grade, second grade, fourth grade, English, and history. In fact, my history teacher, Ham Akahan, she's on the history Dream Team. Yay. So a lot of really profound things are happening because of that. We're going from AVID being a secondary program to AVID being school-wide. So this last summer, we had 4th and 5th grade teachers attend the AVID Institute in Sacramento. So we extended it from 4th grade to 8th grade, and then this summer coming up, we're going to pull it all the way down into primary. So we're going to have kindergarten, first grade, second grade teachers go to the training and figure out what does AVID look like truly school-wide. And I'll tell you some of the reason why I drive that and how it's powerful for me. When we talk about 21st century learning, when I'm in middle school and I see a Socratic seminar, right? So I've seen Socratic seminars in Ms. Akhan's class, in my English classes, in my 6th grade history class, my 7th grade history class, and without using any technology, it is some of the most powerful 21st century learning that we can provide. And so for me, I want to be able to bring that 21st century learning to all of my students. And so we are pushing AVID school-wide K-8. All right. We also have other things, and I just think about these as drivers moving us into the future, right? So technology is a part of us moving into the future, being 21st century. We have really interesting inquiry projects. We have ways of students really understanding a sort of soft skills and understanding how to motivate themselves and others, and how MTSS really pulls everything together. All right, our next goal, we're talking about educational opportunities. And I have educational opportunities, I break them up into 2 different categories, right? So I think about educational opportunities during the school day. What do we offer during the school day? And we'll see things like, we have intervention, gate clusters, AVID, we have different enrichment, right? So how are we extending and connecting what students are learning in great and powerful ways? And I think of that as that's the gateway, right? So when we talk about being the gateway to extraordinary possibilities, that's the gateway. But we also have another gateway, right? So we have a great deal of after-school opportunities, and they're growing. I think the best example is we actually started an after-school art program, Young Rembrandts. The demand was so high, we've actually now have 2 classrooms running concurrently. We had to double it just because of the demand was so large. So we just finished up Missoula's Children's Theater. We had Beauty Lou and the Country Beast. It was fabulous and amazing. I have brought a couple actors with me. They were also fabulous. They're going to speak a little later. We have STEM Club that's back, Garden Club Robotics Leadership. I actually have a member right here of a couple of those, and she is going to speak right now about some of her experiences. So I'm going to move this down. Might have to wait a minute. Hang on. Is that good?
Hi, my name is Avery Houck, and I'm in 3rd grade at Stonegate Elementary. I have been in STEM Club and Robotics Club. In STEM Club, we made roller coasters, parachutes, and more fun stuff. In Robotics Club, we made the robots go through mazes and obstacle courses. I'm also in student government for Miss Reeves' class. I'm a Supreme Court Justice. I cleaned out the water fountain by the playground. My friends helped too. They were president and vice president. We had meetings with Mr. Kingsbury and got the water fountain cleaned out.
It's fantastic. That's great. Good report.
Thank you. All right, just to tell you how serious she was, she meets with my secretary, and she gets put on my calendar. So I'll see her like, oh, there's a meeting with Avery at 1 o'clock. Okay. All right. All right. So high-quality teaching and learning. And for me, I think about this as this is the polish that's taking our learning, right, teaching and learning from good to great. So this is just what's just going to continually make us better and better. And I see all of these factors really being drivers of that happening. And I was talking about and thinking about like the new teacher support, dream team, the trainings that we're doing and being all part of quality first instruction, and I actually crossed it out because it's not just quality first instruction, really. So it's impacting the pre-teaching our teachers are doing, the actual first instruction they're doing, the reteaching, how the whole MTSS structure is coming in where students are getting additional intensive intervention for that. So all of that polish is not just quality first instruction, but it's really impacting every level of instruction. All right. So next is school climate, and I'm going to have my assistant principal talk about some school climate. And thank you.
Good evening. So I will be sharing how Stonegate provides educational experiences in a safe, healthy, nurturing, and supportive environment, which promotes independent and lifelong learners, which is LCAP 4 school climate. Wrong way. So as Mr. Kingsbury was just sharing, we have MTSS, we also have BEST and PBIS. We have PlayWorks, where 5 out of our 6 noon duties were able to go over the summer at the beginning of the school year and learn how to encourage students to be collaborative in play, problem solving. We had a student who shared with Mr. Kingsbury that at home they were having some difficulties with something and they were like, okay, let's Rochambeau. So them trying to problem solve, and she was like, well, where'd you get that from? Oh, we have to do that at school. So they're not only taking what they're learning at home, they're also taking it, learning at school, they're taking it home and using those skills that they've learned through PlayWorks, and just continuing to have our staff be engaged and supportive out on the play yard. We also have second steps, which our staff implement. They have class meetings with their students, again, with problem solving, role modeling, and second steps has been around for a while, just getting back into that in the classroom. Each One Reach One, the anti-bullying program with Kevin Bracey, as well as the GREAT training, which is gang resistance education and training, which is provided by West Sacramento PD. And Officer Bowers will be coming and doing the 6-week program with our entire 4th grade this year to support empathy and just give that training so that they can also be ambassadors and continue that program as they move from 4th grade to 5th grade and then into middle school. Another way that we are reaching LCAP 4 is through small group social skills, second step, why try personal power for young men and women. And we're doing that through our social worker, Ms. Maria Jaquez. We also have our outreach specialist, Ms. Alejandra Gutierrez, and we're also working with Victor Services, who's coming in and doing small groups currently with our second graders, first and second graders, as well as fourth, and we're now starting a group with our 5th grade boys that they're going to be going through currently. And we also have our school psychologist, Ms. Brittany Ori, who is just helping us meet the needs for our Tier 3 students through MTSS. We also, as I shared, we have the Each One Reach One, and we've had several assemblies for our 6th through 8th grade. We break it up for our TK Kinder, and then 1st and 3rd and 4th through 5th. The 6th through 8th grade empathy training is something that's always been there. They go through 2 2-hour sessions, and Ms. Alcahan will share a little bit about that. One thing that we did new this year is we were able to work with our PTO, and they were able to help fund. We had 50 of our 4th and 5th graders go through the empathy training this year as well. And then we're going to bridge our 4th and 5th graders to work with our 6th through 8th grade ambassadors, and so that they can also promote that empathy through the school. And as our 8th graders who are empathy trained already, they're leaving, we already have our 4th graders coming up. So we have Ms. Alcohon, who is our social studies, 8th grade social studies teacher. She also teaches mock trial and dance for electives, as well as our leadership after school club. So she's going to share a little bit for you.
Hi, so yeah, these are some of our students from our leadership club. It meets after school, and this was actually on a day that a lot of the students weren't even able to make it. We just started this club this year, and we had so much interest. In fact, I had to turn students away because I'm the only one, and I can't be there with, we have like 50 students some days, and that's a lot, but they're all really great, and I'm like, okay, you guys, like we've got 50 of us in here, but they all just have this drive to really bring kindness to our campus. And I want to talk a little bit about the Reach One Alliance because I'm the ambassador at our school. But the goal is to create a momentous positive shift in school climate to reduce the stress and frustration that is often associated with kids in school, to empower students to be leaders in action, teaching them acceptance, character, compassion, to create an environment of inclusion, and to increase student engagement. And finally, this is a new goal of theirs, but I love it, to create a generation of substance-free youth. And so our students have been trained. They just went through this training. They went through 2 sessions, and I just immediately saw just this boost in positivity and just this boost in kindness. And I've got students who are now wanting to start a random acts of kindness initiative and fundraisers. And so they're totally just latching on to this, and I just can't wait to see where it goes. We've got some of our students here who are in our upper grades, and they're members of my leadership club and Reach One Alliance and tons of other things. So I'm going to have them go ahead and talk to you about it.
Hi, I'm Aubrey Winger, and this is my friend Nevaeh Hall.
We are 8th grade students at Stonegate, and we came here to tell you a lot about some of the exciting activities we have been involved in this year.
I had the opportunity to play for our volleyball team, and Nevaeh was a member of our flag football team. Both teams made it to the finals, and the flag football team brought home the championship.
We have been enjoying our new after-school leadership club that meets every Friday. We planned a spirit week, worked the cakewalk at the Harvest Festival. We've been trained in leadership by Kevin Bracey and have walked and learned teamwork.
We have even started to direct, film, and produce a monthly announcement show called Sequad News, featuring students as news anchors, hosts, and actors.
Speaking of acting, Aubrey and I both worked in the Missoula Children's Theater earlier this month, Beauty Lou and the Country Beast. We rehearsed every evening, and we perfected our parts and memorized our lines. It was hard, but a lot of fun.
In band, we have been practicing our Christmas music and just had our winter concert yesterday. In October, we got the chance to record a song, and we put it into a competition to play in front of the Capitol, and we'll find out soon if we made it.
Thank you for giving us a chance to share how much we love our new school, or our improved and new school. There is truly no place we would have rather be than Stonegate, and even though we're moving on to high school, I know we will be lions in our hearts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, girls. I appreciate that. Okay, so our last goal we're talking about, community engagement, broken up in a couple different sections. So site communication, we've been putting out a lot of information. More of it's electronic now, so we're using Aries Communication, and I just started using Peachjar, which is exciting, and I think that works really well. Want to talk about some of our organizations that are here. So PTO, we actually have our vice president represented here. So Laura's here. She's our vice president, does some great work. By the way, my PTO treasurer actually threatened me with Sarah after school today, so because they really want to kill him. You might have heard about this already. Yeah, just so you know, I had to promise her that I'm working on it. Okay. I have 2 site council members. So my site council president, Dave Berryman, is back, Dave. Vice President Karen Bishko. Hi, Karen. They're here. They're fabulous, amazing, supportive site council, give really great feedback. I also get great feedback from our ELAC. And I also want to highlight, so at the time, and this is when I collected this data for the SIPSA, we had 184 volunteers, which was the most of any site in our district, is what HR told me. So I was very excited about that. Oh, and that madness you see is right after a PTO movie night. So it looks like all sorts of kids and parents around in comfortable clothes, and that's exactly what it was. All right, so part of our community as well is our sort of teaching community. And so I put in a lot of the things that we do to really pull us all together. I saw one of our TOSAs on site today kind of working with teachers. They invite him all the time. We sort of love our TOSAs coming in and helping connect our teachers. The Dream Team Coaching Days, I'm a part of every single one of them, and I really see how all that time with people spent together planning for really the enriching experiences of students is really doing amazing things. And so that's just part of that community. And I see our teaching community really pulling together, not just at our site, but connected to the teachers at all the other sites as well, too. Yeah. So for me, it's just all those connections and all that sort of powerful connection pulling together is really what's connecting to that gateway that I was talking about earlier, right? When we talk about our gateway and the one during the day and then the other gateway that shows up after school, I really see that all pulling together. And I want to thank you for really being a part of that and supporting us. And as a thank you gift, we actually brought you our swag too. So we have...
Hashtag Lions.
That's right. That's right. So
Oh my gosh, they're
we
great.
finish off
Oh,
with
that's
hashtag
so
Stonegate
nice.
Strong is what you'll actually hear a lot
Thank you
from
so
Stonegate.
much. Thank you. Oh, they're beautiful.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much. Oh, we should put
thank you,
them on.
students, for passing that out, and thank you, board. I really appreciate it. Oh, that's excellent.
We are.
I'm glad we brought them now. So again,
you so much.
Thank you for your
Yes.
time. Appreciate it.
Let's take a picture with all.
Oh, yeah.
Well, can we have maybe the students over here and
Come on.
Yorgos can take a picture? You want to come down? Yeah, should we come down? Yeah. We can do that.
And ones that want to stand.
New rule, we get a full spring flag. That's right.
Oh my gosh, this is so cute.
All right. Let's do a little angle, because there's a lot of you. All right, let's look this way for a second. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
All right, look this way real quick. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so here we go. All right. So let's see. Okay, very good. So we are now on item L, Student Association reports. Our student board member is Veda Duffy. You ready? Ready?
I'm going to fill in.
I'm sorry.
Weren't you given a note for the fill-in?
We got another one.
Do we get another one?
No, that one.
Oh, this
No,
one.
the other one, normal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Veda Duffy.
Good evening, board members. I am Veda Duffy, and I am the school board representative of Washington Middle College High School. I am here to present the board report of December 14th, 2017. At YOLO went through their mid-cycle WASC visit with success. Monday, December 4th, 2017, the visiting team provided recommendations that are already being worked on for the next visit in 3 years. They are holding their 35th annual Winter Fest Feast December 20th at 11:40 a.m. This event is put together by Mr. Miller. Parents and administration are welcome. Their handball championship took place Friday, November 17th, 2017, and our handball champ is Julio Munoz Rivera. At Ridgeway Island, December 11th was their Spelling Bee final. Wednesday, December 13th, Ridgeway Island hosted a holiday-themed day. Students participated in a Christmas carol walk to school at 7:20 a.m. They sung holiday carols from Pirate Park to Ridgeway Island and enjoyed some hot cocoa with mini marshmallows in the cafeteria. They had a holiday craft night where families came together and created Christmas crafts. They had over 14 tables of activities to share. The Ridgeway Island Be Active program distributed free helmets to their bike riders from 2:40 p.m. to 3 p.m. At Elkhorn. Elkhorn has been working with Coast to Coast Soccer to implement STEM strategies along with soccer to engage students. We have over 60 students taking part in drills and activities while promoting math and science and physical activity. This program has been well received and our students are eager to participate. Elkhorn's Ballet de Tigres continues to make progress. We have 20 students learning dances from various regions in Mexico. Students performed the first time on November 17th at a fundraising event, and we all enjoyed the performance. At Alice Norman Preschool, they had a scholastic book fair the week of December 4th through December 8th. The book fair was a huge success, and they look forward to having another book fair in the spring. On December 22nd, the preschool will have a holiday sing-along in the cafeteria. If you would like to join them, please come to Alice Norman Preschool site at 9 a.m. on December 22nd to have a fun time singing with 200 3 to 4-year-olds. Beginning in January, the Alice Norman Preschool will have sing-alongs each Friday at 9 a.m. Please join us anytime to lift your spirits and have a fantastic time singing and dancing with preschoolers. The office staff has moved back into the main office after being out for a few months for renovation. We would like to thank the Board of Education for approving this improvements, and Director Brad Von Stryver and the Maintenance Department for a job well done. Thank you, MOT. Lastly, the Alice Norman Preschool program would like to wish everyone a joyous and healthy holiday season. At Southport Elementary had our second annual Breakfast with Santa event on Saturday, December 9th. Over 300 parents and students attended the pancake breakfast to support the Southport PTO. Pictures with Santa were free with the donation of a can.
Good.
Wait. Canned goods that went to a local food bank. Thank you to everyone that attended. Tuesday, December 12th, Southport Elementary held a TEDx event. The event was the culmination of over 6 months of planning by teachers, administrators, and parent volunteers. 5 speakers, including 2 Washington Unified students, shared stories centered around the topic, Be Curious. The TEDx event was recorded and will be distributed on the TEDx YouTube channel. We would like to invite the community to attend Southport's Kindergarten's Winter Sing on Friday, December 22nd at 8:15 in the cafeteria. At River City, Visual and Performing Arts News. River City's band took second place in Parade Division B Franklin High School Band Review, and student Cassidy Hammer took third place in Military Drum Major. River City Band took third place in Parade Division 3A at Del Oro Band Spectacular, Loomis, California. River City Band took second place in the Parade Division 3A at the Vintage Band Review, Napa, California. Second place in the Color Guard Division 3A, and second place in Concert Percussion. River City Band took second place in Parade Division B at the Tournament of Champions, Fairfield. Student Cassidy Hammer took third place in Military Drum Major Division, and Jazz Band took third place. The district band tour has been moved from December 7th and 12th to January 18th and 23rd. Holiday band concert with BWI/SG is December 13th at 7 p.m. at Westmore Oaks Elementary Gymnasium. Big Band is playing at the Folsom Jazz Festival on January 27th. Today, some of the most talented artists showed off their work in a visual arts showcase during both lunches in the B building. River City High School beat our old record of 6,500 items donated to Kids Can. This year, River City donated 8,005 items. Link crew thanked everyone for their time and effort on this. What a wonderful contribution to the community. Winners. First place, Mrs. Miha's class with 2,317 items. Second place, Mr. Safan's class with 1,814 items. And third place to Mrs. Okita's class with 709 items. We are helping needy children in our community by giving a new unwrapped toy to Toys for Tots. A collection box is located at the front desk in the admin building. BSU and the Multicultural Club hosted a cultural dress day and fashion show during both lunches today. Staff and students showed their beautiful traditional costumes. Leadership is hosting the first blood drive this year in the library on Friday. We will be accepting walk-in staff and students from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And teachers move to the front of the line. Donate today and save a life. Athletics. In girls soccer, the Lady Raiders have gotten off to an outstanding start. The Lady Raiders won the championship in the varsity division of River City Raider Cup. The past weekend, the Lady Raiders continued their winning ways by becoming 3-time champions of the Pittman Tournament. In boys soccer, coming off a league championship season, the boys have started off with a very tough preseason schedule. They finished third in the Davis Tournament, and they have had a very tough matches against some of the top teams in the section. This tough preseason schedule should prepare them nicely for the league. Tonight, the boys soccer team takes on Lodi in preseason contest. In boys basketball, the Raiders have had a nice start to the season. The Raiders beat Highlands 62-49 last night. Prior to that, the boys finished second in Ponderosa tournament last weekend. The boys will be hosting the inaugural Matt Sidhu Memorial Basketball Tournament this weekend. Matt Sidhu was one of our Raider basketball players who passed away in a tragic car accident. Washington Middle College High School. We have been busy. This week was finals week at Sacramento City College, so our students have been preparing for those exams as well as for our own finals next week. Students have started enrolling in SCC courses for the next term as well. Spanish, psychology, and art history are among the classes they will be taking. Several students have their eye on the Sac City College Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society, whose main requirement is that the students maintain a 3.5 college GPA. Members get enhanced transfer opportunities among other benefits. On November 29th, all WMCHS students visited CSU East Bay and UC Berkeley touring campuses and researching potential options for continuing their college education. Thanks to WUSD Human Resources, we've officially got a school secretary. We're so happy to have Lorena as a part of our Panther team. Last week was Spirit Week. Students and staff dressed up in everything from decades to holiday wear. We had a picture day for our yearbook and a Friday potluck to celebrate college finals and our win as the first WUSD College Gear Day champions. Be sure to come by and check out the trophy. Enrollment for next year is open, and we're giving tours and visiting schools to get the word out that WMCHS is the place to be to get a jump on college. And this concludes the Student Board Report of December 14th, 2017. I would like to wish the community a happy holiday season.
Thank you, Veda. You did a great job. And I forgot to mention, Veda is from Washington Middle College High School. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Okay, we're moving on to the WTA report. Don Stoffer.
Good evening. Negotiations seem to be going well. Our team has been happy with the interactions at the bargaining table and also with the new members of the WSD bargaining team. Interest-based bargaining is still new to all of us. The most common complaint I'm hearing is that the process seems to be taking a long time, even on items that don't seem to have much disagreement or anything meaningful differences between the sides. Even so, we've just begun with the process, and we've yet to see if interest-based bargaining will help us through the areas that might be a little bit more contentious. We will see, but we're optimistic. On Friday, January 12th, before the start of the school, the association, Washington Unified, and hopefully CSEA will all join together and co-sponsor a welcome back to families to our schools. And we will do this across the district like we did last May. And we hope to be distributing donuts. And the superintendent has talked about getting some swag together to also give to kids. And we hope you can join us on that morning. And again, it's intended to be a positive event that shows that we value everybody who attends our schools. And with that, I'd like to wish all of you a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Don. Okay. Now do we have someone from CSEA? No? Okay, very good. Okay, and we have no public comments. No, so we're good. Okay, so we now go to our board and superintendent comments. So let's start with board member Alicia Cruz.
I don't have much to report tonight. I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday, however you spend it, and I guess see you next year. Have a safe holiday.
Okay. Okay. Trustee Wong.
Excuse me. Yeah. No. Thank you. So I wanted to update folks on a few things. We all, majority of the board, went to the CSBA conference. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. So I apologize now. I'm developing a cough, and as you guys remember last year, that persisted for like 5 months. So bear with me if I cough through this. So as you all know, that I am actually a CSBA delegate, and so one of the top priorities for the delegation is kind of the PERS and STIRS issue that will kind of come upon us over in the next 3 years. And those are kind of driving concerns of school boards across the state. Even though Assemblymember McCarty had said that we are in this year will have kind of good returns, we're talking about the out years in 3 years from now. So that seemed to resonate throughout the state as a top priority of how CSBA can
work with the legislature and others to help us as school boards kind of deal with that kind of funding issue that will impact kind of the cuts to the cuts in the future that we may have to make. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that was the hot topic of how that's going to roll out. So the other kind of thing that we were talking a lot about is because the impact of this new dashboard that CDE somehow rolled out recently with all these really wonderful color pinwheels and trying to understand that the data is meant to be kind of baseline, and a conversation started about continuous improvement, right? So I mean, I've been kind of consistent about kind of the purpose of what that kind of this new we have to call it an accountability system, but really the data itself is just baseline data for us to figure out what our investments are and to fulfill the promise of the local control funding formula to support equity across our school boards and our state for the subgroups that have been identified in them. So I'm trying to kind of across the state in my day job try to quell fears of so not just here, just across the state as I travel the state, is that as you know that I'm an advocate for foster youth, and the data is by far pretty bad, except for Washington Unified. So we're not a designated district because of foster youth. So I'm very proud of that. But my talking points are: this is new. This is new to everybody. The test has just changed. And again, this is just a beginning conversation. So I still think that we're doing really fabulous work here in Washington Unified. As evidence of that is that when I actually had the opportunity to present at the CSBA conference on our practices around teacher recruitment, right, with a panel of experts. I was actually facilitating a conversation with these experts from the Policy Institute, Shasta County Office of Education, of the innovative things that were happening. And as I was talking about everything that our cabinet was doing, they're like, yeah, that's best practice, that's best practice, that's best practice. Especially kind of this dream team and this investment in professional development. And Trustee Pizzotti was there and Superintendent Luna was there to kind of support the conversation, but I think I was just kind of overflowing with kind of this pride of kind of great to be Washington Unified School District, right? So super excited about everything. It just kind of solidifies everything that we've done in this past year in terms of the investment of our staff and our leadership. And so I was really kind of walked away really proud to know just that we're representing on so many different levels. So I thank you guys for that, for investing in our teachers, our teacher leaders, our MTSS, our classified, all across the board. So I appreciate that. So
fantastic. Thank you. Trustee Pizzotti.
I did want to say this while the student board member is here. AB 261 by Assemblymember Tony Thurman, which was signed into law, will allow student school board members to have a preferential vote on school boards. And that'll take effect January 1st. So it's a start to have a voice in the governing body of your schools. So that's just thought I'd share that with you while you're here, and for all those that are going to be, soon to be student board members that are possibly interested in participating. This is a great opportunity for you. So I too, like Trustee Wong and Trustee Akala and Trustee Kirby-Gonzalez, went to CSBA, and I was just floored at all the great information. So I had never been to, having been on the board for 2 years, you would have thought that I would have had taken the CSBA new trustee orientation. No, I'm 2 years into it, and I'm just taking it this year. So it was very interesting, though, to listen to what some of the other trustees are saying that they're experiencing in their districts. And it was reported that most of the districts will have some deficit spending over the next 3 years. Several districts will have qualified budgets, and a few will have actual negative budgets. Many districts are concerned about the rise in pension costs and other post-employment benefits. In fact, it was the number one concern of all the new trustees that were coming in. So this is of people that have most likely that were just elected back in November. So it was their number one concern coming into the school board. So that was really interesting. And then many districts are switching to interest-based bargaining. So that was one of the questions that I had was, how is everybody doing their bargaining? How are they choosing to communicate? And, more and more we're growing towards this interest-based bargaining. And I thought that was fabulous that we've decided to tackle that task of trying to get more interest-based. So we're not the only ones out there. A lot of people are doing that. So some of the seminars that I took while I was there, and actually I got to sit in on Trustee Wong. She was more the moderator and facilitating the questions that were flowing, and did an outstanding job. And she did us proud. We were all very proud to have her up there as our representative. So. So some of the classes that I took were, number one was managing your OPEB, other post-employment benefits and liabilities. This seminar discussed mostly about retiree health care, and it incorporated the Affordable Care Act and some of the other things that we need to be looking into going forward, like establishing 115 trusts in order to save up for some of our post-employment benefits costs that we'll be having in the future. So this is something that I think it's 115 trusts can only be used to be spent on a specific purpose. So this is, I think it's a new idea that's being tried out, and it's something that a few districts are looking at, and it's worthwhile at least listening and exploring and getting more information on. Probably the most informative one that I had, I had some information about before, but I didn't really know everything that these guys were covering, is the high school sports programs governance and the school board member. And it was put on by CIF, so it was a fantastic program. And it was really highly informative, but I mean, it covered so many things, like starting from, the certification process of all the coaches that need to be certificated in the, concussion protocols and the sudden cardiac arrest, heat stroke sort of things. So it was so informative, and it really kind of opened my eyes, and it was probably the most filled class that I took. Everybody wanted to pay attention to this because it's basically the biggest thing that most school districts, are known for, at least in terms of the high school programs, is like, how are your sports programs running? That's a definition of a city sometimes. It can be if you have a really good sports program. So it was really interesting to see all that was, all that was being said, and all the types of, all the types of new athletic programs that are being talked about. And one thing that I do remember the bill actually going through the legislature, that competitive cheer is now a sports program. And that was outstanding because they did and it's a CIF program. So CIF is going to have a category for this. And so the competitive cheer, they did a video on it, and it's not just being a cheerleader, it's actual stunts and flips and things that I would never in a million years do. So it was very fascinating, and I hope that our school gets into that, because I thought it was just an outstanding sport, and it looks fun. I just would never do it. The other couples, I'll just go down through these quickly. Strategies and action to address teacher recruitment. That was Trustee Wong's thing. Charter schools, what every board member should know. Also, when charter school oversight becomes crisis management. that was really interesting because it was a case study in accountability and school choice, and it was about a charter school in Livermore Unified that went bankrupt, that had allegations of child cruelty, failure to make payroll, failure to pay teacher pensions, and allegations of improper grade changes, operating a private school, and loss of WASC accreditation. What Livermore actually did mid-year was they opened up another school. That's like unheard of. They opened up a whole nother school right in the middle of the year to take over for this failing charter school. So that was, it was pretty impressive. And then on the final day that I was there, I got to see all the candidates for governor. The CSBA conference had a forum, and Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, Treasurer Chung, let's see, Delane, yeah, I can't forget Delane. Oh, former Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, and then Delane Easton, former Superintendent of Public Instruction, Assemblymember Travis Allen, and businessman John Cox. And I gotta say, Delane Easton by far and away crushed it. I mean, she was heads and shoulders above everybody on that stage. And the next one closest, which I thought had to have been Gavin Newsom. Not to say that John Chung or Antonio didn't have their solid points, but they were all attacking symptoms, whereas Gavin wanted to attack the root problem. And so I felt like that was more helpful in terms of where we're all trying to go. When we asked the question was asked by the moderator, do you support allowing school districts to raise revenue via taxes at a lower threshold? And it was, absolutely for Antonio, or absolutely for Gavin, absolutely for Delane, absolutely for John. Antonio kind of hedged his bets a little. And it was absolutely not for Travis Allen and absolutely not for John Cox. And it was almost as if they didn't know where they were. You're basically, their statement to the school board trustees was, you don't know how to keep yourself accountable in terms of your spending. And therefore, you don't deserve additional taxpayer funding. And it was like, wow, you guys are gonna get booed off the stage. It was really, I thought, very fascinating. So I definitely enjoyed it. I got the opportunity to meet all the candidates, and it was great. Additionally, tomorrow I get to volunteer at my daughter's kindergarten class, so I will get to see what it's like being a teacher from the inside of and from a 5-year-old standpoint, or 25-year-olds running through a classroom. I'll be in that middle of that chaos, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. And Trustee Sarah Kirby-Gonzalez.
Thank you. Last night we were here in this room. Some of us, I know Trustee Passati as well, the city recognized the internship programs, and it was pretty cool to see our student interns being recognized. They were recognized as well as our folks with CTE who are working this program, and the outside businesses who've helped support, as well as other employers. So with that, I think it's important to note that 14 of those interns out of 22 were housed in Washington Unified School District. So we have created internship programs for 14 of the 22 kids, the majority, which was pretty cool to see. And it's important to note that I know there were some programs going on already with interns. Our tech department has been doing it for a long time and taken the lead on that. And it's nice to know that we now have these partnerships that are helping fund it. And so very much appreciated, great opportunities for our kids, and it was great to see. With that, then I went to a different Future Ready meeting, not the mayor's initiative, but something that the technology team is working with. Although it's not just technology, it's really how is our district moving forward with collaboration, with technology. How are we preparing our kids for jobs that don't exist yet? And so that is one that I would recommend for President Akala is looking at for a committee. And when we have dates for that and maybe a little background to hopefully put somebody on a committee formally, because it's a really exciting group, very thoughtful dialogue. And then I have to say Southport's TEDx was pretty amazing that they worked to do that, and how special to have that model now in a group that's worked really, really hard. And so just like earlier in the evening when we heard from Stonegate and heard about their parent involvement and how much their parents do, thinking of their garden and after school clubs, same thing here. And I know a parent helped to create that TEDx and along with staff, and just really incredible. So shout out to them. CSBA was a great opportunity to get some information on that kind of big picture scale. We talk a lot about what's happening in Washington Unified, and it was great to come together and hear some of that big picture stuff. And we talked a little bit about, for example, the state facility bond that was passed. I did bring up earlier, and we haven't yet seen any of the money for that, yet the voters approved it. And so they talked about how important it is that we have our number kind of in there, that we have our plans, and we're just waiting to hopefully be refunded that money that the state of California voted that we should get. And it's also important to note that that didn't raise any taxes. It came from the general fund. And so I think some people might feel like their taxes have been raised, but they weren't. But we still need to see that. We need to see that money. We have facilities in our district that have been a big focus for the bonds we've had before. And, things that keep kids safe, really, fixing roofs, fixing air conditionings. And so that was an important piece to mention. They also talked about the impact that charter schools have, especially when there's a lack of oversight. And so with that, it's interesting to note that Twin Rivers School Board, just at their past meeting, brought up that they would like to look into the charters that they have approved in Washington Unified. Who knew that Twin Rivers would be approving charter schools in West Sacramento? They didn't even know. They were a little confused by it. So clearly there's a conversation for lack of oversight, and I'm excited that they're starting to have that conversation, and we will as well. And we had our 2x2 meeting, of course, with the City Council, and we talked about a couple things. One is the Sycamore Trail project, which was a big grant for them and a big one in terms of putting in a bridge so that there's more accessibility for our families, for our students, maybe to get to the high school too. But with that comes some school and community concerns. And so we talked about an open dialogue. Staff is working hard together, and we'll keep watching that. But I appreciated their commitment to really a true partnership to make sure that it's a great project for all of our kids and families to get to school. And we also talked about the cannabis. I don't know how many of you received phone calls. I received quite a few, and as a surprise. And so we talked about that conversation too. I think many of my fears were put at ease, knowing some of the location, knowing that this is not distribution, and this is not where kids will be walking home. That was my first concern when I heard the location and the proximity to our schools. But I know they vetted it and worked hard, but we need to have that conversation with them too. And so we had that commitment from them that they would have open dialogue with staff and with us as well, for whoever those 2x2 members are in the future. And I'll end with one thing at CSBA as I grapple with the new dashboard, which has a lot of great components in terms of looking a little more holistically. But one thing that I really that I thought was a true point that I see, and that is that looking at our test scores the way we do, and not Washington Unified. This is big picture, and I'll give a shout out to Washington Unified in a minute and what they're doing. But it would be like going to the doctor and the doctor saying, "You're doing better than 75% of my patients," and you say, "Okay, well, let's talk about those tests. How did I do on the tests?" Well, I can't give you that information. I don't have any specifics to give you. But I'll compare my patient next year to you, and then I'll show my growth. And so it reminded me a little bit of the test, because I just want to remind us that when our kids are tested, that the teachers don't get the data to know any of the questions they got right or wrong. We don't know what the questions are that they get as we make decisions with that. And so I really appreciate the work that staff here is doing when we look at those numbers and talk about it. When math was in concern, it was, let's bring in the math project. Let's do this work. Let's come over here, not let's test prep and do other things. So I'm really thankful for Washington Unified and for the board up here too, that there is a vision of looking at our whole child, because in some places that's not happening, and it's concerning to me. So I'm really proud to be here, and I hope those conversations start to trickle out across our state. And I will just end with happy holidays to everyone. As my daughter said to me, I'm so glad that in our schools they're hearing about how we celebrate holidays around the world, how we celebrate different holidays. She's learning all about it. And she said yesterday to me, Mom, can I open one of the presents under the tree? And I said, no, honey, not yet. You have to wait a little while longer. And she said, Mom, it's the second day of Hanukkah. So I appreciate all that the teachers are talking about in the classroom, because my daughter has learned quite a bit about celebrations around the world, and even if it means she has to open a present every day in our house, I appreciate those. Right. So happy holidays to all the staff and everyone out there, and I hope that you all have some time to reflect on yourself. And I actually wanted to end with a quote, and that is that I was fortunate to sit in, and not to participate, but sit in the back of Superintendent Luna's leadership meeting, and she shared something, and it talked about leadership. And so as we think about what leaders are doing at all levels in our organization, we, of course, and we're sitting up here, are leaders too. And your most important job as a leader is to drive the culture. You are the leader, and you must spend your time, energy, and effort creating and building the culture of your team and organization. None of us is as smart as all of us. People are our biggest asset. Create a culture where people hear about what's important. You can't just create a culture where people hear about what's important. You must create a culture where people feel what is important. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended a lot of the same lectures that the other board members attended. They were fantastic. So they've already mentioned quite a few of the same ones that I attended. And then, of course, we had our vice president, Jackie Wong, making presentations. So it really raised the visibility of Washington Unified School District. One of the lectures that I did attend, though, focused on something that's happening right now. And they were talking about bullying. And one of the factors that is not put in when people are accounting for bullying is the highly sexualized environment that is sometimes created in high schools. And young women have been often victims of sexual harassment, but it's often played off as, oh, this young man was just joking, or you should actually be flattered. I think even when little boys, go and hit the little girl and they say, oh, it's just because he likes you. These are sending very wrong messages, to our young men out there. And what we have found out is that, when we create this culture, even in the schools, we don't consider this bullying, but it is a very strong indicator of what becomes acceptable behavior in young men. And when it's not stopped, in the elementary and the high school levels, when it's not being taught at home, and we take no steps whatsoever to curtail it, we have seen recently on TV what has happened. We've had reports of sexual harassment happening in everything from Washington, D.C., and our government to the entertainment industry and in the workplace. So I always feel that as board members, when we attend the CSBA conferences, we come back with a lot of very valuable information. And you've heard the board members and the very important lectures they attended, the feedback that they bring back to the district. And this only helps our district become much stronger and address a lot of these issues. So I'm very grateful that we were able to attend and I thank the board. Thank you. Okay, so we will now move on to, where am I here? Superintendent, yes, thank you. Superintendent Linda Luna.
Thank you, President Alcala, Board of Trustees, staff, and guests. This evening, I have a very brief update, and one of the trustees had mentioned something about how Washington Unified has invested in the whole child, and I looked at my slides while board members were sharing, and I thought, wow, I really am addressing a real one-sided part of the child's education tonight, and it probably shows my unconscious bias about what Washington Unified is doing and investing in all of our students' education in the area of the arts. So you're going to see a lot of that, and I didn't mean it that way, but that's exactly what came out. So, and I also want to begin my update by thanking, as I do every single year, to the outgoing president, President Sarah Kirby Gonzalez. Thank you so much for being our president this past school year, this past year, and for all the time and efforts that you have put forward on behalf of the board, on behalf of all of our staff and employees of our district and our children. Thank you so much for all your support and all that you've done for us. So we're going on, and a lot of things that are on my slides have already been stated. So now I'm just going to give you the visuals. So last evening, the City Council celebrated our high school students who were paid interns this past summer. And these areas of internships were private sector, through the city, and also through our school district. As you heard, so many of the paid internships came from our district. In the areas of engineering, technology, agriculture, city government, and culinary, our students are able now to learn and to grow next to the experts of the field. So they're getting hands-on mentoring and hands-on experience, and also understanding the beginning of what a dollar is and how to manage their money. So we're pretty excited about that. Had a great cohort this past year, and I look forward that each year we're going to be able to grow more and more students to have paid internships each summer. We have started a new initiative throughout the district, and give a shout out to Melissa Baldwin, who's our program specialist for secondary. And in an effort to promote a college and career environment across the district, pre-K all the way up through high school, every first Wednesday of the month is considered our College Gear Day in Washington Unified. So this first Wednesday of the month, if you go on our campuses, you'll see staff beginning to wear their college gear or their college colors, because as you heard from our student board member, there's a trophy that is assigned to the school or the department with the highest percentage rate of participation. So congratulations to Washington Middle College. I don't want to hear anything about how many kids they have. It doesn't matter. What happens is that their staff got in there and the higher percentage came out. So shout out to Washington Middle College, and we're just excited to be able to do that. And so if you come on campus on a first Wednesday of the month and you know you're doing that, wear your college gear, because that'll help the participation rate of the school that you're going to visit. Also wanted to let you know that at the end of November, we had our River City High School Performing Arts groups participate in giving back to the community. So what they did was they gave a concert called a Giving Tunes Day. And what it did is they gave a free concert open to the entire community, and of course to our parents and staff in the first floor here in the Galleria. It was a beautiful event. I'm sure I was unable to make it that evening, but we had other staff there, lots of community members, and I don't think I'm able to play that, but there's the link. I think I'll send you the link, because it was covered by Good Day Sacramento. Oh, awesome. Who is doing that? That's great, because I'm not pressing anything.
Hopefully you can get the link to donate to.
The lone wolf, and even the sloth.
We have 17 seconds of
Of course, you wouldn't put them in the same room together. With one search, Trivago makes it easy for you to look for multiple rooms. Simply select the number of rooms and the number of people staying in them.
This is not
So, same hotel, separate rooms, single search. Hotel, Trivago.
Okay, thank
From West
goodness.
Sacramento,
Here we go.
finding out all the details. Hey, Cam.
So of course we want everyone to participate in Giving Tuesday, and it is great to see that high school students want to give back as well. They're calling it Giving Tuesday, and you get the chance to see a free concert tonight. So I know you want a little sneak preview, especially you, Ken, because I know how you like your music.
Right.
Get ready to be impressed. Take it away, guys. Now, not only is the band going to be playing, but also the choir is going to be playing, singing as well. So we're going to give you a preview of them singing too, but you won't be able to hear them over the band. So, band is stopping. Doesn't this put you in the holiday spirit? And here's the choir now.
Are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening. A beautiful sight. We're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland. Gone away is a bluebird. Here to stay is a new bird. He sings a love song as we go along, walking in a winter wonderland.
These students are so talented. If people want to see the concert tonight, where do they need to go?
The West Sacramento City Hall Galleria, and doors open at 6:30 and the concert starts at 7.
How hard is it for you to convince these students to want to do something like this?
They love it. They love it.
And you know they love it when they're here early.
Yeah, exactly.
In the morning. No high school students like to get up before 8 o'clock in the
That's for
morning.
sure.
Let's be honest. They're shaking their head no behind me.
But they totally made it
So
worth
get on
it.
out there and celebrate on this. You what?
They made it worth it.
Yeah, so get on out there tonight and make sure that you enjoy this concert, not only with the choir, but also with the band. Guys?
There you go. Giving Tuesday. See, they did that, Giving Tuesday. Thanks, Camby. Hey, give the fact.
Okay, thank you so much for doing that, Teresa. So you see, we are representing out there. And our kids did a fabulous job, and I want to give, of course, a shout out to Good Day Sacramento for that. One area that is really beginning to be very prevalent throughout the district and in our community is our theater program. And that's under the direction of our teacher, Christopher Hanks. And so I attended the It's a Wonderful Life performance, and it was a very different performance because it was truly, the sets were done by the teacher and the students and all of the costumes, and it brought you back to the 1930s, 1940s, and they literally did it as a live radio play. So it took me for a minute, like, okay, I got to figure this out, and why are they in this costume, and why aren't they moving along? And then they were literally doing the sound effects on the side. Okay, so that was my clue, like, oh, okay, I got it now. So it was a spectacular performance, really well done, and kudos to the teacher for all the extra efforts because they have to create all the sets, get all the costumes in place, and just get the timing. So it was a really wonderful performance by our kids. Also want to give a shout out to the girls' soccer. See, I get these text messages from Principal Moisage or from coaches, whatever, on Saturday or Sunday or Friday nights, depending on whatever sport's being played. I got this text last Sunday that our girls' soccer won first place in the Pittman tournament last weekend. So they're on a fast track for a really positive season coming ahead. You heard a little bit about the TEDx event over at Southport, and as we know, the TED Talks are educational videos. And so what this was a combination of schools being able to either bring TED Talk videos or a combination of live presentations with TED Talks. So shout out to Southport and the leadership of Principal Ainsworth in just bringing this innovation, because it's a different way of students learning and hearing. And I thought it was really great that they asked Leah Nelson, who's a student over at Stonegate, to come and be one of the presenters about, because it's the concept about ideas worth spreading. And her concept went nationwide. I think actually it went international, where she was able to really bring her entrepreneurial ideas of being kind. And it just swept the nation. And here she is, one of our Stonegate students. So shout out to Principal Ainsworth for that leadership. Well, I was on River City's campus today. I just happened to be there during the lunch period and walked into a lot of event happening right there during the lunch periods. They were having a multicultural celebration. So they had students in all these different costumes. We had staff. We had a staff member in Scottish attire. It was really cool. So anyway, we took a picture there. There was a lot going on the campus. And I was there actually to see the art show. It's their first art show and art exhibit that they have put together this year. And so all of the visual art teachers came together to put together different genres of art and different displays. So we had different things that we could see, such as a student there you see on the left-hand side is doing a live painting demonstration. And that was while I think some of the jazz members were playing music, so he just went to town. There you see one of our artists there, Jessica Cornejo. Those 3 pieces are hers on display. And then there's Shana. I told her I would say her name correctly. Sakbanyeva. And so those 4 pieces are hers. Caitlin Glenn, she also had 4 pieces on display. So there's a lot of talent going on throughout our district, and we're seeing the development and the fruits of all the labor throughout the grades in this high school exhibit. So just really, really impressive. Also wanted to tell you that some of the students had some artwork at the Crocker Art Museum for a while. And this one piece was there in which the students created their own self-portrait on tiles. And so that hung in the Crocker Art Museum for a while. Okay, I'm going to give a confession here. I have found now my place to take a break through my challenging days. And I ended up in the choir room and there with Mrs. Chrisman. And, I saw her in the hallway. She goes, "Hey, do you want to come and hear our kids?" I said, "Of course I want to hear your kids." So I was able to come by and hear her advanced choir. And as some of you know, I went back to singing again this past semester. And I just completed 2 weeks of singing back home in Stockton with the symphony and with the chorale. And it has been a real wonderful blessing as a balance of the joy that we try to get in our strategic plan there. So we had Mrs. Chrisman there. This was truly the best part of my day. I was able to play piano for the kids, and we just immediately bonded. It was just really wonderful. So if you can't find me, I'm on break in the choir room. Finally, we just want to remind our public and our friends that we have a few things still happening in our schools. Next week, our high school students are going into finals of their first term. So we want to wish them well and want them to study hard and get through this weekend and also their next week of finals. We are on a minimum day next Friday, so to our parents, we want to make sure that everybody knows that. And also on winter break, our schools will be closed for 2 weeks, and we look forward to seeing everybody back ready to go to school on Monday, January 8th. So happy holidays to the board, to all of our staff, and to all of our families. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we now are going to our consent agenda. 01 and 02 have been pulled. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, and, okay.
Second, sorry.
Thank you. Clerk Kobe.
No. Just say all in favor.
Yes. Oh, I'm waiting for Jackie to come back. Okay, great. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. And let's see, now we're moving into public hearing. P1, public hearing regarding the Sunshine of Washington Unified School District's proposal to the Washington Teachers Association. Michael Reed, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
I'm going to be asking a good evening to the board, cabinet, and guests here this evening. Happy holidays. I'm going to be asking for the board to conduct 3 public hearings. So I'm just going to work through them one at a time. So first off, the administration is recommending that the board hold a public hearing regarding the Sunshine of the Washington Unified School District's proposal to the Washington Teachers Association. So we need to, the action we need to take is to open the public hearing.
Okay.
And then if there is anybody that
Okay,
wants to
so,
speak, then close it.
So
Gavel open?
we've opened it and then closing it. All right.
So we're going to do that 2 more times.
All right.
So we're going to get really good at it, right?
All right, Mike.
Okay. So P2 is administration is recommending that the board hold a public hearing with regard to the Sunshine of the California School Employees Association Riverview Chapter 168 bargaining proposal to the Washington Unified School District.
So open and close.
P3 is administration is recommending the board hold a public hearing with regard to the Washington Unified School District's bargaining proposal to the California School Employees Association, or CSEA, Riverview Chapter 168.
Open and close.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now moving to Q, information discussion items. Q1, presentation of Washington Unified School District's 2016-2017 audit. Paul Desario, Interim Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. Oh.
You don't look like
You know, I was going to say
You don't
no.
look like Paul.
Sorry, it's actually going to be
I was
me.
gonna say no.
So, good evening, board. I'm going to introduce our auditor, who actually is here tonight. This is Jennifer Hall, and we had an audit work that was done October of 2017 for the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2017. So this is for the 16-17 audit. She will present.
Good evening. I believe all of you have a copy of the audit report. I won't go through it in detail, but give you some highlights and some pages that maybe perhaps you would want to look over at some point. The audit process involves us issuing an opinion on the district's financial statements, on state compliance, as well as federal compliance. And so after all of our audit work is done, we conclude on that and we issue either unmodified or qualified opinions. Unmodified means that everything went well, and so that for the financial statements and federal compliance, you had unmodified opinions. For the state compliance opinion, it was qualified because of a finding, which is in the back of the audit report, and that was related to attendance at the charter school. Then from there, we also look at as part.
I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
attendance at which charter school?
At the middle.
Washington Middle
Yeah,
College?
middle, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I'm sorry. Then from there, we also look, as part of the financial statements, we look at to see if there were any audit adjustments. There were a couple of changes from the unaudited actuals related to Fund 51. So those were recorded in the financial statements. And that is really all. That is the highlight of the financials.
Thank you. Any questions? Board? No. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the staff, both at the district office and at the site. Kylie and her team does a really great job of preparing and getting us information. No one loves an audit, and so great job to them for that. And then at the sites, we go out and visit and look at student body, attendance, as well as some of the other state compliance pieces. So thank you to all of the staff for doing a great job.
Thank you.
Can you tell me which page that was on for the qualified?
Sure. So one page that you could turn to is towards the back. Let me get you.
82.
82?
I see attendance for charter schools.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah, so starting on page 79, that is a summary page that basically outlines the three opinions I was talking about. So you have your financial statements, your federal awards, and your state awards. And so that gives you kind of an overview of what the end result was. Following that is where you would find your findings based on the three different, so the first one on page 80 is ASB for the financial statements. Page 81, there were no federal findings, and then page 82 talks about the attendance.
Okay, for
2 days.
2 days, right,
Mhm.
okay. Got it, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? No?
No,
Thank
that's
you.
great, thank you. Okay, so we're moving on to Q2, update regarding the volunteer process for Washington Unified School District. Michael Reed, Assistant Superintendent.
So I believe you have the presentation that will be up on the screen there in front of you. The purpose of the presentation this evening is just give you an update, give the board an update on our the switches that were made in regards to fingerprinting for the current school year as part of the LCAP plan. So first, the goal that is in the LCAP was founded on the idea or the research that says that the link between parent involvement, there is a strong link between parent involvement and student success. So we wanted to make sure that we are providing every possibility for our parents who are interested in volunteering to find their way into the schools and help with their child's education. So we wanted to increase parent engagement at school sites by incurring the cost of fingerprinting for low-income families as part of the requirement for volunteering. So just as a reminder of where we were last year when we created that goal, is that we had roughly 320 active parent volunteers, both category 1 and 2 in the district that were active. So upon taking on this charge in the Human Resources Department, as with all things, you try to find opportunities to improve other parts of the system while you're doing this. So the first thing that we realized, we're hearing over the past years, is that there was a lot of confusion in regards to the two different categories that have been created by the old fingerprint system. So we moved to eliminate that and instead require all volunteers to complete the live scan process so that we can be assured that every adult that is inside working with our kids has been cleared through the fingerprint process. We also created badges upon live scan clearance and then shipped those directly to the sites for disbursement so that the Human Resources Department supported that effort. And then we also ask that all staff wear badges on a daily basis. So that way any adult that's on campus should have a badge. And that's really the simple rule that we're all asking we're asking all folks to follow. So there's some impact to this. Obviously, we have an increased number of live scan reviews that need to be done inside of the Human Resources Department. Most times the reviews come through and that's a pretty quick process. Other times it's more involved, and sometimes it even leads to some conferencing with folks who maybe have things on their record that they would like to explain because they are really eager to volunteer and they just need to maybe help us with their story so that we can decide if that's in the best interest of our schools.
Can you talk to us a little about what those stories are, or what those, out of curiosity, I'm curious.
Oftentimes, it's just giving some background on what we can see on a live scan report. Oftentimes, all we can see is maybe what a particular misdemeanor or crime might have been, but we might have something that's 15, 20 years ago. And so we just want to have an understanding of what maybe happened, okay? And so they'll share enough of that we get that, but then it's maybe beyond that. It's what have they done since then to demonstrate that they, that was a lesson learned and they've moved on. We've also provided repeated communications to staff and families about these changes. We've extended hours inside the Human Resources Department on various nights to help provide some opportunities for folks that work. We had we've been open to the public since August 16th for volunteers to receive packets and take pictures inside of the Human Resources Department. So it's a drop-in basis. So you can kind of imagine it in the first 3 to 4 weeks of school. It was the folks in our Human Resources office it was pretty tough to get through 15 minutes of solid work before another person would be coming in for a picture or a badge, which was great, but it was an impact. Also provided 3 mobile events at various schools during back-to-school nights. And our human resources staff went out to each one of our sites for 3 to 4 hours per school to make sure that all of our staff had an opportunity to get their badge printed, as well as other volunteers, or as well as volunteers at the school site that could take advantage of that time.
Mike, when we volunteer as parents for our kids' classrooms, we don't have badges like the trustees don't have badges. We have our name tags, but we're not there in official capacity, are we? We're there just as volunteers. So should we be getting badges, or should we be?
Correct, yes, you should.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's talk and make sure we figure out where we've gotten the badges. I think.
I don't got
I
one.
got mine.
You have one, you have one.
Well, I have one to volunteer in my daughter's room, so not working on board capacity. I think exactly what
Yeah,
we were talking
but you should have a badge that looks like the rest of them.
Okay.
So let's get you set up.
Thanks.
That'll be the task of the staff tomorrow. So expect a phone call.
Thanks.
Then you got to come in and smile. All right, okay. All right, so just a few statistical pieces that I think help also explain kind of the scope of the work here and what we've done. So we've processed about 400 live scans since July 1, including those who were Category 1s last year that didn't require a live scan. We have about 600 parents or family members sitting on our volunteer lists. Oftentimes those are parents that maybe their child, they've actually aren't even in the district, but they're still on our list. And so we know they're there potentially as folks who may come in and want to do the process with us. Currently, we have 552 badged volunteers, soon to be 553. And that surpassed the goal that we had for the current school year of 420. 554.
55.
54.
Three
Yeah,
of
okay.
us.
Well, so we'll take care of the three of you. We also provided badges to 850 staff members. The fingerprint incurred cost to this point is about $27,000. That is probably the bulk of the cost for the current year, but we will see that slowly trickle upwards as we go through the year. We did provide, and there was a cost to the fingerprinting that was done on site because it was not done by our own staff. We had to work with an outside vendor. And also, again, that visiting of the 3 school sites and the impact to staff and to our staff. So responses. Here's what we're hearing from our staff. Thank you for making an effort to keep us safer. We've heard that. We've also heard so much better. Our families now have better access to being volunteers. Eliminating the 2 categories is great. I think this came from a school secretary, if I remember right. Now we don't have to go back and forth with staff about who gets to go on trips. Because in the past it was, they had Category 2, Category 1, and there's a lot of confusion about that and maybe not always a surety that we have the right people. Things we've heard from our families, I appreciate the district being more vigilant about checking on adults working with our children. Paying for the fingerprinting has relieved a huge barrier for me. And I feel that everyone is more accountable.
Mike, just a quick question.
Yep.
Hey, questions. So is this $27,000 that we spent for the live scan, is that going to be an ongoing cost for every year when we do this? Or is somebody who got live scanned for, say, their kid in kindergarten going to be okay for first grade as well? Or is it, do I now have to go back for first grade live scan?
No. So once you complete the live scan process, the fee is to set up a pipeline with the Department of Justice. So once that pipeline is set with us, if anything was to happen in the
It'll
future,
alert you.
we'll
Okay,
get a hit.
great.
So once you've done it once, you're good to go. So there will be some ongoing costs because each year we have a new set of families, and kindergarten is where we tend to get the most volunteers. But I don't think that the cost will go as high as it maybe did this year, but we'll see. All right, any other questions?
I have a quick comment. I was one of those parents that missed the flyer because I thought, well, I've already gotten cleared. I've done my fingerprinting to volunteer. And when the flyer came home, I saw it as, who needs to volunteer, and I kind of put it to the side. Luckily, most parents did not do that. They read the full form. Because then I realized the badge night had kind of come and gone. And so I went to my daughter's school just because I'm used to a different system. And I said, okay, I'm here for my picture. And they said, well, you can't do your picture here. And so then I went to district office. And thankfully, as you know, I took a 20% cut when I came here on school board. So I was able to do that. And I went in and I said, is there a way we can have this system where you could have a picture done at your school site, or, just something to make it easier, because for working parents, it's just a burden. But then I saw the process, and it's a great badge. It prints right out, and it's really wonderful. And staff has worked so hard, and they've given up so much time. Clearly, this is a big win. When we hear about schools and what they're doing so well, so often it's also because the families are helping. And so I'm so supportive of all the work. I really appreciate the vision of making this an expense that we take on. It's a big one, but I think it's important. And so just moving forward, if there ever is a way, to look at the software, or to have a program that could take a picture at a school site, not to take a lot of staff time, but maybe there's a quick way. So just to keep that kind of open, I think might be one nice thing to do. But I really appreciate it. So thank you for that.
Our pleasure.
Anyone else? Thank you, Blake.
I'm not going to go too far.
No, I was going to say,
Yeah.
Q3 Athletics 2.0 Task Force Report, Michael Reed, Assistant Superintendent. And I'm sorry, HR, Stan Moisich, River City High School Principal, Jamie King, Athletic Director.
All right. Are ready? Okay. All right. Well, this evening we want to share with the board work that has been done by task force. I named us. It could have been a team effort, but Athletics 2.0, which symbolizes the fact that we're doing a bit of a reboot on some of our processes and procedures, mainly around our interaction between the Human Resources Department, the athletic program, but also how we set up our coaches for success and make sure that they are in the best possible situation to get off to a good start and to manage their students for a productive season. So I have Jamie King, our athletic director at River City High School, and Stan Moisich here this evening with me to help present. We're all going to be talking about this because we were all part of a task force that included all of the folks listed here on the screen, including Assistant Superintendent Parsons, many members of the Human Resources Department, because there's a lot of pieces that you'll see that had to do with the interaction between those departments, and also our 6-8 intramural coordinator, Stacy Hatz. Here you are. It's top one.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jamie King. I'm the athletic director at River City High School. So before I begin, I'd like to look at River City and the numbers of our athletic programs and how they play out. So what you'll see on your screen is that we have 12 teams that play in the fall. Our athletic program is divided into 3 seasons. So we have 12 teams that play in the fall. And then we have 11 teams that are currently playing in the winter season. And throughout the spring, we'll have 12 teams that will play during the spring. We have 37 stipend coaches that are paid to supervise these teams and monitor them and teach them in terms of skill and to monitor the program overall. We have 20 very generous volunteer coaches that help put in a lot of time to help our coaches and help our programs to grow to what they need to be. The most important aspect of athletics is the student athlete. As you'll see, that we had 299 student athletes in the fall. We have currently 211 student athletes participating currently, and we obviously don't have the spring numbers, but for last year we had 258 student athletes. If you look at those numbers, it's just over 700 student athletes. We have about 2,100 students in our school, so you're looking at about a third of our population is participating in student athletics each year. The pipeline to our athletic program starts with the K-8 programs and primarily the 6-8 programs. We've done a great job this year of corresponding and working together. We've had the championships of the volleyball and the championships of the flag football programs at our high school, and we think that's a great bridge between the two programs. Beyond what happens at the high school, there's many district departments that are involved in what we do, from facilities to educational services. And then outside of those services, we have to correspond with the CIF, as Mr. Pizzotti spoke about before. They are the governing body of all of what we do in athletics. Our league representation, we are currently part of the Tri-County Conference. This is our last year in that conference. Next year, we'll be moving to the Metro League. And then we have to have correspondence within this City of West Sacramento, because we have a joint use facility program with them, that we have to make sure that our facilities and our programs are coordinating with one another. And then the final piece was definitely most important is the officiating piece. We have to make sure that we're in correspondence with the NCOA and make sure that we have officials at each of our contests.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sure.
Who's in the Metro conference?
Okay, so so next year it's changing, but what it will be us, McClatchy, Kennedy, Laguna, Burbank, Monterey Trail, and Grant.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Yes. In terms of athletic success, we've had, ever since we moved from the old site to the new site, we've had a tremendous amount of success in terms of our academic achievement. In 2017, we produced 5 league champions. We had 13 of our varsity teams participate in the CIF playoffs. In terms of growth, we've seen our numbers in terms of interest grow dramatically. So we've included freshman baseball, freshman football, freshman boys soccer, boys volleyball, boys golf, and we are hoping to have stunt cheer this spring if the numbers are there to prove it. And then the final piece, which is the most important piece, is our scholar athletes. As I said before, we have over a third of our students participating in athletics. 74% of those student athletes have a 3.0 or higher. And we just are so proud that our kids are not only performing on the athletic fields, but they're also performing in the classroom.
Jamie, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, absolutely.
When it went on to the Metro League?
Yes.
And, my pen ran out. In the league we're in now, the Tri-County?
Yes.
Is that based on our numbers?
The criteria was your population, your competitive equity. They'll say that distance travel was going to be a small portion of it, but I think it played a major factor into it. And then when they would look at what they call scope of program, in terms of how many programs you have to offer compared to the schools that you're going to be joining with.
Okay.
So that's what those criteria is for.
Because early on, we had a discussion because of some charter schools we have here.
Yes.
And some of those students still playing at the high school, and then we have to include their full school numbers as far as.
Correct. Okay. So if you take one student from a charter school, you take the entire population of that school as part of your enrollment. So in terms of the enrollment, we're Division I, so we're the highest division right now. The only thing that would play into a factor of that is just making sure to be able to monitor all those students, because we don't have access to their grades as easily as we would with high school students, or the attendance or the behavioral things. So those are the things that we have to take in consideration when you're looking at charter schools.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Jamie, real quick question. You said
yes.
there was a big increase. Is it also in female sports? Because I noticed it said boys sports.
We are seeing it. So like, for example, boys golf, there's the hope to have girls golf. And so what we want to do is make sure that we have the interest there. And so what a female golfer could do now is she can play on the boys team and see what the interest is. And if there's enough interest there, then obviously we could start the girls golf team in the fall. Mr. Morchich just asked me to mention, as was mentioned in the student board report, we are hosting a basketball tournament this evening. The boys are, and it's in honor of Matt Sadu. Matt Sadu happened to be one of my former players. Unfortunately, he passed away in a car accident in 1998. And we did the boys did a very, well, I'm assuming they did a good, nice job of it. But we presented the family with each the mom and the dad with a basketball in honor of them, and we hope that we can do this as a continued tradition for their family. So we're very excited about that.
Thank you. I'm Stan Moisich. Thank you all. I'm very pleased and excited about our athletics program. I've seen tremendous growth over the last few years here in the community. I know the community, as a board member Pizzotti pointed out, the community is really pulling for us. They want to see great success there, and so it's something that I feel is really coming on in a lot of sports. Not in all the sports, but in most of our sports, I really feel like there's a really strong community component, and we're seeing a lot of growth. Nevertheless, there's also some things that we feel like we need to work on. So here tonight, we're going to talk about some of those things that we're working on now to improve the sports program. So as you'll see, we're really looking at our hiring, more specifically, the intent to return forms, updating positions, things about communicating approvals, accuracy and consistency in our forms in general are a big part of this. We're also going to talk about coach evaluation. How do we do that? How do we go about that process? Coach requirements and training. So earlier tonight, you were listening to Assistant Superintendent Mike Reed talk about some of the the rules and the things that go on. Well, a lot of that applies to coaches as well. So that's a lot of work in terms of tracking, verifying, forms again, a lot of different forms. So we're going to go over that process. Job descriptions. There may be some work needed in some of these areas. Some of these areas may not have changed much over the years. Coach expectations. We do have a coach expectations handbook. Coach King could give you some technical details about that, but there is a code of conduct for players, coaches, and parents at our high school. That did not exist prior to about 3 years ago. We're going to talk about some of the recommendations that we have made as a team as we do this work. We must understand this is ongoing work, right? Because every year there are different problems, new things occur, and as they happen, we have to find new ways to efficiently deal with them and make them more successful for our community. And I believe that Mr. King is going to tell you a little bit about how the hiring process starts with our coaches.
So I'll first refer you to the wheel to the right there, and it looks like it's a continual. There's really, for a high school coach, there's really not a whole lot of time off. And I know there's a common misconception that a lot of us just work within our season that we're actually coaching. And the reality is most of our coaches on our campus are working 9 to 10 months of a year. And so you look at your preseason conditioning, your off-season conditioning, a lot of stuff that you can do in the summer to make your athletes better. So to try to jump into this wheel there's really no perfect time. In terms of how to hire a coach, the first thing that we're going to do anytime that there is a new program, such as freshman football or freshman boys soccer, or if there's a resignation, or if there's a change in coaching position, my first job is to put in a personnel action form. And that's my request to the district to say, we need to apply this position and see if we can find a qualified candidate. Once the human resources portion, they will create a post, and that's flown internally. And ideally, we want to find an internal candidate first that's qualified to coach our young men and young women. If we find an internal candidate that we feel meets qualifications, we will go through the interview process. If that person meets those qualifications, we will submit that recommendation to HR, and then they will submit it to you. If there is no internal candidate that is qualified, we then look at external candidates, go through the same interview process, and if we find a qualified candidate, the recommendation once again is given to HR, and then is given to you to find that coach. So that is my process, or our process at the high school level to try to hire a new coach.
Can I just ask a basic question?
Yes, ma'am.
This is not my lane.
That's all right.
How does one evaluate if somebody's qualified?
Well, so a lot of that is the initial part of it is the initial just looking at the resume that they post on EdJoin. And then once we feel like someone meets those minimum qualifications, then we follow that up with an interview and see if they meet that qualification. And then obviously we check the references to see if they can coach what they say they can coach.
So it goes through EdJoin, but our teachers get first right of refusal, right?
Yes, so when a job is posted, it is only shown to our internal candidates initially. So external candidates can see the application, see the job, but they cannot apply for it until our internal candidates have the initial look at it.
Let me make sure I got that right, because it's not first right of refusal. It's you get to first view it.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
You get to first view it.
Correct.
And if all things being equal between the two candidates, then you're required to go with the teacher at the
That's
school.
correct. That's correct.
But it's definitely not,
Right.
You can go outside if you find the better candidate.
Right.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to add on a bit to this piece because this is, Athletic Director King does his part at the site in partnership with Mr. Moisich, but then Human Resources steps in and helps with pieces of this, as we've already alluded to. So it's very important to understand, I'm going to go back and say something that Mr. King said already, is that a coach is in a position all year round. It isn't just for a season. So if we've hired a baseball coach, that person is the baseball coach until they resign, or retire, or we've let them go at a certain point in the cycle. So what we've done and what we'll present here in a couple of minutes is kind of where we've picked that point at which we decide if somebody's going to be asked to come back or if we're going to let them go. And one thing I want to emphasize is that the recommendation that the committee has is trying to help explain when a name hits the board agenda in consent, what that means. Because I think maybe we've had some confusion about that, or maybe it's been done different ways over the years. I don't know. But we want to set one thing so that all 5 of you know what that means. And so the recommendation is that when you see a name on the agenda, whether it's a cessation, so somebody that's leaving, or you see a recommendation, that means we've had a change. So if we have, I'll use baseball again just because it's coming to my head. So if we have a baseball coach in play that has already been hired and is there working in the position, that name will not appear again in an agenda unless a change is made. So some type of action has happened. And so I think that it's maybe been, like I said, been done differently in the past, but that's what we would like to recommend be done so that we have clarity around this issue. I also want to talk a little bit about that in a normal cycle, that's, that we will follow this process, and I'll talk a little bit about the timing of that. But there are times where we have an abnormal situation happen. We do have coaches that resign just before the season starts. We do have coaches that resign mid-season. And we have coaches that resign 2 weeks before the season starts. So those create some abnormal situations where we may start the season, the actual playing time or the practice time, with a cleared volunteer doing that job, or maybe a coach from a higher or lower level of that particular sport covering while we go through the process of hiring. And then once we've gone through that process, which can take some time, all right, the whole posting and hiring, then the name would show up on an agenda for the board's approval in that process. So I just want to help bring some clarity to that, that it is abnormal for those abnormal situations to happen, but it does happen, and that's what creates some confusion about timing, where you might see a name being approved and we're already a month into the season, but that's why it happens.
Mike, can I just ask about, so say I'm looking at the wheel here, and you finish, we'll go with baseball, you see the season has ended, now you've got until, well, you're supposed to be doing your evaluation immediately upon the adjournment of that season, right? So is that something we've already put into process, or is that something we're going to put into process? So say, okay, we look at baseball team is 2-30, whatever. It's not a good season. Teams kind of ragtag. They're not having good discipline. They're not learning, good fundamentals, what have you. If the evaluation comes and we decide that we're not going to continue with that position, when is that position flown? That's the key part, because I don't want to wait. This is just my opinion. I don't want to wait until, say, December to fly that position. I don't even want to wait until October. I want to fly that position in June.
So
I want to get that going as early as possible.
So on the next slide, we're going to talk about that timing, because we have specific timelines that we've designed. But I also want to explain, and maybe Mr. King can talk a little bit about, there are times where we are hopeful to add a team. So I think this happened this year with football, is that they were hopeful to add a team, but until the kids are there and we have a count and we know how we divide, or maybe can divide them up and get season set and game set, that there may be a need for a late coach hire, even when we are thinking ahead of time that could happen.
Right.
So but I know you're talking about the more normal.
I'm talking like varsity. Yeah. I was a varsity baseball coach, Dixon High.
So we're going to get that.
I got that part.
That's next.
So I wanted to see how this works.
Mike, before you go on, I'm sorry, I have 2 questions. I think it's quite clear about the stipends. When I initially got on the board, the problem was they were giving it to us after the seasons.
Yeah.
So that has changed, and that's perfect. We know things are going to happen, but initially, the season would happen, and then they'd come and ask us for the money, and then we'd have some problems with coaches that didn't do it. So I think what's happening now is appropriate, and I know you guys do the best you can. Also, since you have a task force, one of the problems I had, and I think I brought it up at one of our meetings, is when it comes to us to be approved, we didn't know if it was JV, we didn't know if it was varsity, and I talked to Mr. King, the form he turns in is a little bit different than what produced to the board. So I think as a task force, you should look at the form you use and make sure it's identified for us. So I'm just suggesting that as a task force project. But I understand that, I don't want to say it's truly nobody's fault, but it's just forms not, the language is not jiving. So when it came to us, we were like, so is this JV, is this freshman? So I understand that it was a form issue, but that was one of the things that maybe the task force could visit.
Yeah, and so with the initiation of the electronic forms, that process that we have in HR that's starting to roll out, that option will actually be a drop-down. So they will only be, Mr. King will only be able to select from the options that are there, and they will match how it's worded in our collective bargaining agreement. So that will take care of that.
Thank you.
Did you?
I got it.
You got, okay. All right, so looking at the coaching evaluation process. So what we initially do, and I'll use the winter season as the baseline for this, we have an initial meeting with all paid and volunteer coaches to attend to talk about the general guidelines of coaching a sport, not specific to an individual sport, but just scheduling in terms of how to get the kids out of class, transportation, everything along those lines. All coaches are involved in that meeting. What we're going to do, and this is something that as we improve this process, is we are going to do a mid-season evaluation. So what we'll do, so using winter sports as an example, the league will start in the beginning of January. So right at the first week of January, we will meet with all of the coaches that are currently coaching winter sports. At that point, myself and the school administrator will meet with the varsity coaches, and we'll basically give them a general evaluation of how they're currently doing. If there are things they need to work on, we'll tell them what they need to work on, and hopefully they will improve at that. Myself, the school administrator, and the varsity coach will meet with every other coach on their staff and let them know how they're doing and how they're progressing throughout the course of that season.
Every other coach on their staff?
Meaning their JV coach, their
Okay,
assistant
good.
coach, their
That's what
freshman
I
coach.
wanted. Yeah, thank you.
And give them a sense of how they're doing. At the end of this season, there will be a formal evaluation of each of those coaches. Once again, the school administrator and myself will review the varsity coach, and then the school administrator, myself, and the varsity coach will review everyone else on their staff that's in a paid position. At the conclusion of their evaluation, they will, if they've done a good job and fulfilled all their obligations as a coach, they will be presented with a letter of intent to return in that position for the following year. If they have not, if they choose to resign, at that point, they will decline the intent to return and present their letter of resignation, which will allow us to immediately put forth the personnel action form and start the process of hiring a new coach. If the person has not met the qualifications of the coach, at that point, we will let them know that they will not be returning for the following season, and then we will once again start the process of hiring a new coach.
I'm sorry, I got.
No, that's
more.
fine, that's fine.
Okay, so if the varsity coach, if I'm following along the process,
Sure.
is basically evaluating his
staff.
JV
Yes.
coaches and freshman coaches,
Mhm.
if the varsity coach feels that the JV or freshman coach and their assistants are not up to par, or making the grade on their evaluation, do they come to you and say, I think he should not return?
Right. And so in looking at that, and what is said in that initial meeting is that the varsity coach is the head of that program.
Right.
And you as an assistant coach or a JV coach need to fall in line with what is expected. Obviously, as long as the student athlete's safety is in well-being, but in terms of philosophy and coaching philosophy, that is the varsity coach's decision to make that. And we want to make sure that whoever's working for them is in line with what they're thinking.
Okay, that's the system when I was a baseball coach at Dixon. I was the the guy overseeing the JV and the freshman teams.
Right.
So, yeah, is this a new process, or is this something that kind of was working some places and kind of not?
Well,
or
I would say from an evaluation standpoint, we traditionally in the past, we've looked at the varsity coach primarily and evaluated them.
Yeah.
I think evaluating the lower levels and having and I say lower level just meaning the sub-varsity, and having the varsity coach involved, that is part of the process of evaluating everybody on that staff. So that's how we feel like we can do a better job of evaluating our coaches.
So I think an important aspect of what Mr. King just covered is this idea that clear expectations increase the likelihood of success. So we know that as school administrators, we know that as teachers, as coaches, that we want to lay out a nice clear path for what's expected. And so that coach meeting at the beginning of the year I'm going to pull that one example of taking that time to meet with coaches and talk about those global expectations should improve and increase the likelihood of success. Another piece we need to work through with our labor partner WTA is job descriptions for our coaches. Currently, we have an athletic director job description that was negotiated. I think we finished that, about a year ago? Maybe 6 months? I don't remember. But we did it not too long ago. And that provided Mr. King with some direction and expectation in his role. But we also need to do some work with these various job titles that are in our collective bargaining agreement. If these are the layers of coaching that we land on, and doing some research on this, work on it, we need to provide job descriptions, because these roles do have a little bit different, what they're expected to do is a bit different. And then in all of those job descriptions, obviously it'll be important to include the training requirements that are needed to hold these roles. So Mr. King's going to talk about what those are. You're a busy guy.
Yeah. Okay, so in looking at the training requirements, and this is required for all paid and volunteer coaches, the first ones that I list here are pretty self-explanatory. FBI clearance and Department of Justice clearance, tuberculosis screening, CPR, first aid. The time in parentheses is just how long it takes to complete those trainings. So you're looking at 3 hours for CPR first aid training. Mandated reporter training can be an hour. Concussion awareness, 30 minutes. And then sudden cardiac, 30 minutes. And then the last one is the coaching education program. And this is an online program that is created by the National Federation of High School Sports. And basically, it's a 5-hour course that you can do at your own pace. But it covers topics of health and liability, age-appropriate technical and tactical teaching, creating the optimal environment for your team, training periodization and injury prevention, and then mental skills in terms of mental toughness and in mental adaptability to sports and competition.
Again, sorry.
No, that's fine, please.
The guy with questions. So are all of these things completed prior to the coach interacting with the children?
The first, everyone except for the coach's education program, according to the CIF, you have 1 season to coach of sport prior to completing the coaching education program. So basically, as Mr. Reed spoke about on that emergency process where you're hiring that coach last second, you would then have that, basically if you coach one sport, you would have an entire year to complete that course in order to do it.
Okay. So all of these other certificates are being held where?
So in terms of the certification, and we're going to get to that in a second. So
like the training on the concussion and sudden cardiac arrest.
Right. So when you go on to, so we have two ways in which you do it. You can do it through the CIF page, and then you can do it through the Kagan training as well. So once you complete those trainings, it will automatically submit that to the district and let them know that they have those trainings in place. As a coach, we're going to talk about CIF Home Campus in a second, which is a program that the district has bought. That is also something that will go on your coaching profile, and both myself and the Human Resources Department have access to that, so they can see who has actually completed those trainings.
Okay, so it'll be kept in HR, from what I understand?
It'll be kept in a database that we can both see.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
good.
Thanks. Okay.
And that's a new program.
Yes.
So we're understanding that.
Right, okay.
I think
So just quickly, because some of the things that are on this slide we've already talked about, but I just want to emphasize the fact that this task force created, updated, or revised the following things. So a coach handbook was given another look and some updating. The coach hiring handbook is being put together. It's on its last draft, so that Mr. King has a hiring handbook, so he knows the process that we've just talked about, and it's right there at his fingertips, and others can view it as well. We have the work with the job descriptions that need to be done. We need to solidify the evaluation cycles and get the forms in electronic form, so a lot of these things just need to happen now. Regular coach meetings are being held, as talked about, and we have a regularly held HR athletic director meeting, so Mr. King is on the phone or in person with folks in the HR department on a weekly basis, just checking in, seeing where we're at with certain maybe hires or process of maybe somebody that's resigned and where's the posting at, or whatever discussion needs to happen. You want to talk about this one?
All right. Home Campus. Home Campus is a program. It's a internet-based program that was supported by the CIF. And what it is, it has two portions to it. It has one that will assist the athletic director. So from an athletic director standpoint, this will allow parents to do all their athletic clearances online. And so they no longer have to do the paper chase of, hey, I forgot to put my insurance down, or I forgot to put this down. They do it all online. It's just like anything else that you fill out online. If it's not completed, it does not let you move forward until you've completed that necessary information. So that, I think, is a great resource for our parents and for myself, because the main thing that I can do, if I take my son or daughter to the doctor and they get a physical, I can just scan that physical, upload it onto the CIF home, and that student athlete will be cleared just by the click of a button. Once I go through and check their qualifications, they're cleared, and the coach can instantly have access to that. So we put that in at the beginning of the winter season. Obviously, the transition has been going to be a little bit of a rough one, but I believe by the beginning of the fall next year, we will have everything where people can do everything online. They will, parents will still have the ability to clear with a simple hard copy if they want to do a paper and have their child turn it in. I can do that for them, but it's going to be a lot smoother process if they're able to do it online. In terms of the human resources portion of it, as Mr. Reed says, they do have access to the program as well. So each coach has their own profile. So if you look there, my profile is on the bottom, and it gives you basically every basically certification that I have passed, and so that tells you when it's passed and when I need to renew it, and so everything is up there. So that way the coaches is basically their coaching profile is up, so the whole human resources department can see that.
And I'll thank you. We experienced the first year that database for my son, and it was smooth and easy. So,
Yes.
It is working from the parent side. I don't know if there's any bugs, but it's instead of having paper shuffled around
Right.
and you be somewhere in the middle of nowhere without a binder or kid stuff, and you
Right.
can just look it up. I mean, that
Right.
was a very good addition.
Right, yeah, we like it very much. And other districts have used this. Elk Grove has adopted it, and a lot of districts in our section have adopted it, just because, as Ms. Cruz said, it's a great resource for coaches and human resources people to use.
I'm sorry, Mike,
No,
are you going to
no, no.
continue on?
If you have a question for.
No, actually, I was going to read something on someone's asking for public comment. So.
And just wait till the
Okay,
end.
you haven't
Only
finished.
the slides.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No. Close. The last two are a bit of a summary. So the next piece of, one of the next big pieces of work that we need to do is work with our labor partner, WTA, to negotiate job descriptions, as I stated earlier. We also need to take a review of our stipend levels for our coaches. And that would be something, it's a compensation-based piece, so we do need to work with WTA on that piece. And then we need to just have some discussion about how we're funding the athletic programs at the school site. Not that they're wrong, but we just need to take a look at, are we using the best option here? Currently, the collective bargaining agreement drives how many stipends we provide to the school site, which then drives how many programs maybe you can run at the school site. And is that the best method? Is there another one that we can consider as an organization to make it easier to run the programs for the school? So our overall recommendations, as you've, many of them you'll have heard throughout this conversation, is we are recommending an increase to our stipends to a more competitive level. We need to continue or move ahead with conducting those weekly HR athletic director meetings, negotiate coach job descriptions, implement the use of the coaching handbook, which is already underway, and the hiring handbook. And we need to fund required training. Our recommendation is that we do fund the required training for our coaches. It's estimated many of these trainings we can do online through our Keenan online vendor, so that our cost is pretty minimal. This would be the cost to take care of our volunteers and our coaches at the high school as well as the 6-8 program. It'd be about a $6,000 cost per year, which is pretty minimal considering the number of trainings that are in that list. So we would recommend that as a district we take care of that, especially in light of the fact that our 6-8 coaches have to do all those requirements, which would eat up about probably 40% of the stipend that we give them. So we just need to do some discussion and work around that. So now we are complete.
Okay, I was just going to say, let me ask one question, or actually two questions. So the intramural coaches, I'm just wondering, do they take the kids at all, the 6-8 kids, to see their corresponding practice at, I know they go to the game, like the flag football teams go to the games and so forth, but do they get to see the practice? Because that, I think that would be very interesting to have, you know, a 6, 7, 8, because you're building the pipeline, right? You're funneling the future JV, freshman JV and varsity football players. Take them to a practice to see what it is that they're going to be expected to do as they move forward, you know, and kind of incorporate some of that, you know, transition.
I think, obviously, in an ideal situation, that would be, you know, we would love to be able to have that happen. I know whether it be us as the varsity team go practice in front of the go to the K-8s and practice at their school and see, or have those student athletes come to our school.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's based on timing. And if you look right now, if you're looking at the basketball season, we have both boys and girls basketball season going on and K-8 boys and girls basketball season going on. So being able to coordinate practices and do that, I think it's a great idea. I think what we've done in lieu of that is, like, for example, our girls soccer team hosted a clinic last year and invited all K-8 players to attend. The boys and girls varsity basketball team hosted a clinic for the junior NBA where we had 300 kids come in and for a morning, and we did a free clinic for them, and we were just rotating kids through stations to do that. So we're trying to do those things and be more creative with it. It's just, a lot of it is just logistical and scheduling things they're trying to figure out. But I think we're working towards that, and I think having kids come to our campuses and be on campus, I think that's something we're trying to do.
Okay.
I want to add one thing to that, too, also. I think you're seeing that tendency not only in athletics, but I think you're seeing that around our district overall in all areas, academics, social, emotional, school pride, community connectivity. I think you're seeing that in a lot of areas. You know, you saw the last year when we had the graduation walks, our homecoming this year. You're seeing a lot more of that now than before, and not just in the realm of athletics. So what you're suggesting is just something I think that's just good for the community in all aspects of our high school.
And then the other question is, when we're looking at the job descriptions for the coaches, are we keeping in mind the CIF requirements of our coaches as well as statutory requirements? So there are some requirements now that are, you know, statuted, and I just want to make sure that we're mindful of that as we go into negotiations with WTA.
So when we go to build, you know, first drafts of those, we'll be working closely with Mr. King, who has access to job descriptions, I'm sure through CIF. We can also access job descriptions from other districts that are high performing or maybe have done some recent updates. So we will do that.
Okay, question? I just have one more quick question. Again, this is for your task force. I agree. I'd like to see an assessment on stipend increases. I know it's been a very long time since we visited that. And when you do that, if you can, and I know you will because you guys are very smart and on it, when you bring it to the board, if you can bring us the athletic budget of River City, because I'm not sure if that's adjusted internally at River City or if when River City does its budget to the district that they, you know, include that in their budget as part of an ongoing thing. But because of the increase in the different sports and the students that are participating in the sports, I'm sure you assess that you may need more for athletics. And I would like to see that number when you talk about higher, increasing stipends, because it is very important. And since I've been on the board, we haven't even talked about financials, and I think it's very important that we support that program also. So when you bring it to us, those are two things I would like to see as a board member. So you don't come before us and then you forget it and then we have to go back and forth. So those are just two things I'd like to see when you do decide to bring the stipend increase request to us, that make sure that the athletic budget is in there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we do have one public comment. I'm going to read the policy on public comment. The board respects the rights of members of the public to speak to us regarding matters on the agenda and other matters within the jurisdiction of the board. However, it is important for members of the public to recognize that comments regarding students other than the speaker's own children made during a public board meeting may be legally actionable as a violation of student privacy. Both state and federal law prohibit the board and others from discussing confidential student information in open session. To this end, be advised that if you reference a student's name other than your own student, you will be out of order and your comments may not be protected by the privileges that protect public speech. You could be found liable for such comments in legal proceedings. Furthermore, it is important for the public to understand that negative or derogatory comments made against district employees or others, even those made in a public board meeting, may be actionable civil defamation. As such, the board reminds the public that the district has existing board policy that allows the public to lodge a complaint against a district employee. This policy provides a comprehensive procedure for reviewing and responding to public complaints. This process provides a more thorough opportunity to be heard than is allowed under the open meeting laws that govern this meeting. And we have a public comment from Don Stauffer. Thank you.
Hello again. I have a couple questions regarding the proposed changes. One, there was a really nice slide on some of the trainings, safety trainings that would be required of coaches. Would these trainings also be required of site administrators who might be supervising athletic events, as well as physical education instructors? And specifically on concussion training, are student athletes given training on what to recognize in terms of concussions, as well as their families on things to recognize, if a concussion has occurred? Thank you.
Could you please, Jamie?
In terms of the athletic portion, right now, we do not have a program for parents and students that see. We basically, our coaches are trained to look for the symptoms in that, but we have not done in our coaches handbook meeting, our parent handbook meeting, we do talk about that in terms of injury and injury prevention, but in terms of a specific program for that, we do not have that yet.
And actually, I can answer that. There's an online class that parents and students can take on CIF's website. Right. So you can watch a video, and half of the reported concussions are not from the kids that are concussed, it's from their teammates that are seeing, oh God, this guy's not right. I got to tell somebody. Because the kid themselves, I know as a baseball player, I would have never said anything that would have taken me out of the game. So it's the other kids that are going to say, you got to take him out. He's going to get hurt. And they're the ones that are reporting. And that's where you got to make sure that they're trained. So it is probably a good idea that we request our kids to go through and watch the video, because it's really important.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a quick
yes.
comment. And so I want to just share that when I met with the students at the high school and I asked them what advice that they would give, they were seniors, what advice they would give to students, and they said join a club or join sports, because those are two really critical places where you can have a network of good friends that kind of keep you in check, and so they spoke very highly of their time in the sports. So thank you for this thorough update. It's great to see all this, to all be on the same page and to know what's going on and the work ahead. I appreciate it. And I also appreciated the comments about the girls' golf and volleyball, that we just make it really clear that they can be part of that and that they can join on, even though it might say boys team. And I think about how it almost is college and career ready, right? When we think about how much business gets done sometimes on that golf course. So I just want to make sure that, that's open for them. And then just speaking as the daughter of a dad who's been on the, who's done the physical since I was a little girl, and I had to sit outside the locker room while he went in and did the physical. He's a doctor, did the physicals, and he still does to this day at Placer High. He does the physicals. So I don't know if there's any doctors watching this, but if anybody wants to come out and volunteer to do some of the physicals, I don't know if we have that ever on site, but I think it's a great asset. So maybe there's somebody in the community that wants to help.
If I can say
Yeah.
on that about
Absolutely.
the physicals, the West Sac Urgent Care had just opened up recently, and we formed a partnership with them.
Oh,
So
great,
initially,
great.
they'd come over and conducted the physicals at the school, but since it's right across the street, if kids have not gotten their physical, we've created a partnership with them so they can just drop in. They have all of our files on their staff, and so our kids can, and they give it to our kids at a discount rate of $25, so they're allowed to go in there and get their physical. So we've worked out that, and
good.
we're trying to work a greater improvement with that as well.
Good, because we know the local hospital and doctor, they're far away. So good, thank you, I
Thank
appreciate
you
that.
so much for the
Thanks.
comprehensive overview.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And let me just say thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry to be the pain in the butt with all the questions, but this is really important to me. You know, I played football, wrestling, and baseball in high school, and without having done that, I had a rough childhood. If I didn't do that, there is no way I would have graduated high school, let alone college. And the things that I learned in the athletics and the sports programs that I played in have kept me going throughout my life, especially when times are tough. You know, and I got to tell you, this is something that I'm very, very passionate about, and I will be, you know, a big champion and big supporter of yours, but I also want to know, what are you doing? So please keep us informed. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you, all of you. And just to note, our schedules are online, so they're updated. The winter sports schedules are all online, including wrestling, which, although we think of that as maybe a male sport, you ought to know there's quite a few young ladies that do, and actually maybe some of our top wrestlers are young ladies. So you might want to check that out sometime.
Sounds great.
You just made me ask another question.
Uh-oh.
So I've noticed that there are some schools that actually have full-on women's wrestling teams, because there are enough women wrestlers that will actually fill up a whole team. I was just wondering, are we getting close to that point yet? Because when I went to a match last year, and we had at least 6 or 7 girl wrestlers. So I was just
I don't think we have enough for a full squad, but it's a possibility down the road, but we don't have enough currently.
Okay, thank you. Q4, California School Employee Association's election to participate in California State Disability Insurance Program. Michael Reed.
So this is simply an information item. We are required to inform the board that our California School Employees Association classified unit has chosen to participate in the state disability insurance program. So on July of 2017, the CSEA indicated that their members had an interest in replacing the voluntary disability insurance offered to their members with the California Disability Insurance Program beginning in 2018. Opting into the state system requires that all classified employees pay in and covered by SDI. So on October 10th, CSEA held a meeting and voted to approve this coverage. And attached or in your materials are the letter of acceptance from the SDI itself, and then also an overview of the meeting that CSEA held to vote on this.
Any questions?
No, I'm just very excited about this and the prospect of what that looks like. And I know SDI has some great benefits that teachers don't get to participate in. And so I think this is great that they saw this and saw it as benefit.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So now we're moving to action items. We are going R1, here we go. Approval of Washington Unified School District Discipline Matrix. Andy Parsons, Assistant Superintendent. Jerry Smith, Director of Student and Family Support Services.
Good evening, President Alcala. Sorry about that. Board of Trustees, Superintendent Luna, and Cabinet and guests. Tonight, we're asking the board to approve the matrix, discipline matrix. I'd like to give some context to the board. The last time the board approved the discipline matrix was in June of 2011. Since that time, there's been a lot of EDCO changes, and This is probably a personal philosophy, but I believe instead of a discipline matrix, it is actually a behavioral modification matrix. When I look at matrix, I look at how to change behavior of students. And with that said, the new matrix, we've done some significant changes in the alignment of the different offenses, but also we differentiate between elementary school, middle school, and high school because different infractions takes different modifications. Also, what's most important about this matrix, as you'll see, is due process for kids. We believe that you need to do other means of behavioral modification before jumping to suspensions and things of that nature. And so I just wanted to bring that out, that it's very important to do alternative means before jumping to additional means. As you can see, it also says may on all the areas because we have a lot of different options that administrators can impose because this is an administrative function and duty to look at the individual child and the practice before imposing behavioral modification for the student. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Smith, who will take some questions, if you have questions, and explain a little bit more about how we developed the matrix.
Thank you, Dr. Parsons. Good evening, everyone. When I was given this task to kind of take a lead on the reorganization of our discipline matrix, went through the process of connecting with numerous school districts from around the area and even those further south into the Bay Area, looking to see what other people were doing as they were making the transition that we would be making. The transition, as you know, in the last 5 years has gone from an idea that we're trying to keep kids in school as much as possible and lower the number of suspensions. And even with that, we still haven't got to the point where we want to in this district. We've made significant number of changes in the last 5 years. I think I've reported to you previously that at one point 6 years ago, we had 1,100 suspensions in one school year in this district. We're down in the 400s right now, and which is great, but there's still room to make improvement. The idea, of course, is that there's still things that have to be handled, as Andy said, with behavior modification, but the transition that people are making is developing a matrix that gives different options to the school administrators in lieu of just automatic suspension. Most of us, when we grew up, if somebody did something wrong at school, they would just send them home for a couple of days. It was the easy way out for the school administration to not have to deal with the situation. So the matrix is, like I said, been developed with a combination of support from other nearby school districts, but also the things that fit and work for us. A high percentage of the in lieu activities are things that are associated with restorative practices, trying to make that adjustment to where our young people are getting the message and learning the lesson that they have handled something incorrectly, but also trying to do some repair to the damage they may have done. So without further ado, if you have some questions, I'm more than willing to take them.
Yeah, go ahead, Kay.
Oh, okay.
We shared with us board policy, and I had brought this up, is that we had adopted, thanks, Mike. We had adopted that administrators could not suspend for willful defiance K across the board.
Yeah.
The teachers' class suspension is still there, so I know that that could be part of the matrix, but maybe asterisk it so that it's aligned with board policy.
Yeah, and I think in my understanding of the CSBA policy that's written here, I think what we actually have, although that's what's been adopted at this point in time, is actually a typo, because if we look at it, we have a conflict in the fact that at the top it says that we wouldn't be suspending anybody for any type of defiance or disruption, and it says no student shall be. I believe it's supposed to be no student in grades K through 3 shall be suspended for that.
We had a full discussion. It was K-12.
Okay. Well, in our administrative regulations, if you look behind that, okay, 2 pages later, in administrative regulations, I've highlighted on the second page in the back, it says any students in grades 4 through 12 may be suspended but not expelled for disrupting school activities. So we have a conflict between our two different things, whether it's the policy or the AR, and I think it's something we need to go back and look at.
That was a full discussion, and so I know that we came up and we discussed K-12, and maybe our AR wasn't aligned in that part of it, but we probably should align it to our discussion, unless you remember differently. Anybody on the board remembers differently, but I remember.
I don't remember.
I remember that conversation clear because I was worried about, I thought of a specific example of remembering in my classroom a student throwing a desk and then the principal coming in and the student throwing the desk at the principal. And I think, and I was concerned that a student like that couldn't be suspended. And I mean, a whole desk was, so
It wasn't a K charge, yeah, that would have been.
Yeah,
necessarily a
so
K
what would
charge.
that, but we had something else that could be under, I guess, under the willful defiance, because it would.
That would, yeah, that willful defiance is just, it's
Just
subjective
saying
by
no.
nature. Yeah.
Sure. So I
That
just
would've
wanted
been
to
like
make sure that a
assault or
case
battery.
like that still had a place, and I remember the discussion because I was assured that it would, and so.
And elsewhere, yeah, correct.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question. I was looking in the K-5 section, and I was looking at arson. And I'm curious, because if you're doing something that's arson and you're in K-5, does there not have to be intent? Because it says you can just reteach, you can give, formal reprimand, you go all the way up to, let me see if I can pull it back up.
I think you can go all the way to expulsion.
All the way up to expulsion. So you basically have your gambit of choices there. I'm a little concerned about, kids that are setting things on fire.
I have
in
also had a
grades K
student
through-
do arson at elementary school and set the playground
Yeah,
on fire, so it
exactly.
does
So
happen.
I have a little concern about that in terms of, whether or not maybe there should be a certain minimum starting point other than reteach or.
It says up to, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just curious as to how does arson, I mean, I'm thinking arson there has to be intent to, you can accidentally set something on fire, but
May I
that's not
address the
arson.
board?
Yeah.
As a former K-6 principal, who, as my administrative duty, has had to deal with these cases.
Right.
The wording of the behavior matrix modification really allows flexibility. A kindergarten student who brought matches to school because they were in the house and lit their pencil on fire, technically that could be considered arson.
But I thought arson had to have intent behind it, like, I'm mad, I'm gonna set something on fire, versus I accidentally did it. I
Well,
was
he didn't
playing with
accidentally do
matches.
it.
You were playing with
Allows
matches.
staff
Thought it was a
Yeah.
candle and lit.
Right. No, and like I said, that's where I could see the differences lie. Like, when you say arson, to me, it connotates like, I'm mad, I'm gonna do something to act out, and I'm gonna try and, burn the place down.
I think one of the reasons why most school districts have gone to the may include idea is the idea of giving the opportunity to the school administrator to go through an investigation process and find out what really was the cause of that situation. Was it truly, full-blown intent? Was it not understanding the situation, et cetera? So that's why everybody's gone to that may and given a little bit more flexibility, once again, in lieu of looking for something that is outside of keeping kids out of school.
Okay.
But I can see where you're coming from, for sure.
And then my other question is, in terms of in-school suspension, is that still classified as a suspension?
It is. It is. It depends how you load it into areas, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's definitely a form of suspension. We can collect, and we don't do it for that reason. You can collect ADA because they're at school still, because they're under the direction of a certified
But you're
teacher.
still reporting it for the dashboard, for the CASP dashboard?
is.
Yes.
It
Okay.
is included.
Yeah.
Then what about Saturday school?
It is included.
Saturday school is also included as a form of suspension?
It is.
It is.
It is.
And any suspension, like, even if you make it up, it's.
That's more of a
included in that.
detention.
I think.
I know.
They're listed as equals?
That's how,
Oh.
The dashboard has changed some of that, because I think basically what the state saw is a lot of people were just force-feeding in-school suspensions to keep their suspension numbers all the way down. So we're looking, I think the most important thing, I think that we should look at is that, are we keeping kids in school when we can keep kids in school? Not so much worrying about, are the numbers absolutely, are we looking absolutely perfect? We're still trying to make some adjustment to it. But in cases where we believe we can keep them in school and still keeping their safety and the safety of others, that's the ultimate goal we're looking for.
But you're competing with two things, right? Chronic absenteeism, which is what we're trying to save and recoup ADA, right? So they should be in school theoretically, because if you're in school, you are. But then the other aspect is school. Oh my gosh. is school climate. My apologies.
Mhm.
And I know it's been a kind of quite the conversation at this date about why we should include it, but it was included. So yes, we understand. We understand.
And there are areas for sure that the people would question about, well, that sounds like it's too light for that offense. I think the idea of setting up the discipline matrix is for those unique cases periodically that don't fit, and you might be able to use an in-school suspension versus something that's clearly a suspendable, or in some cases, the 5 big ones that are absolutely have to go for expulsion. So once again, it's not out to not send kids home, because there are certain times when we have to, but I think we're all very clear with what the state's looking for and what we all believe is better for kids, is that you're going to get a better education, even if it's an in-school suspension room, by being at school than it is sitting at home watching television.
I just wanted to follow up on kind of just as I was looking at this to respond to Trustee Kirby Gonzalez's question. That student could be suspended on battery on school staff if it was directed towards them, or if it was damage to school property because of the desk. Right, so there are other categories.
Yes, I was put at ease last meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, but I just
Thank
wanted
you for
to, just
reminding me.
because it was
Yeah.
the conversation, and I
Thank you.
wanted to point it out that we actually had the full conversation about K-12.
Discussing it with our site administration, I think they're excited about the opportunity to look at different means to try to help support students, but at the same time, making sure that our campuses are still safe.
President Alcala, if I may just interfere for just a moment. It is 10:01 right now, so we're,
Make a motion.
if the board would like to continue proceeding with the meeting, we would ask the board to extend the meeting
Motion to
time.
extend.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Are there any more questions? I do have one. You said we had about 400 suspensions last year. How many of those were students of color?
Students of color on the whole. I believe that the numbers sat at somewhere in the area of 11% in African-American students, and Hispanic students were at 6.4% of the number of students of that ethnicity in the district.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And we do have one public comment. Don Stauffer. Oh, I'm sorry. Any more questions? Don, did you finish?
I don't know if my K charge was addressed and if there was action to kind of align and look back.
We will take a look at that.
Okay.
No,
I kind of
Just for clarification, the board is directing us to bring back the board policy and regulation to ensure the language is aligned. Is that correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
with the intent of the conversation that willful defiance was not a suspendable offense by administration.
In grades K-12 or just grades K-3?
It was K-12. We can look at
For
K-
the discussion, yes.
I'm pretty sure we adopted K-12. We will look at it again for
Thank you.
discussion. Yeah.
Board Member Cruz?
I just have a quick question. How many of these, and I think I know the answer, of the suspensions resulted in expulsions?
Last year, 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we were on the board, we don't get to see you very much.
I don't
might
mean that.
be a good thing, but
I'm appreciating that for all of us.
we were first on the board.
It means it's a good thing.
We would see people come in with files for expulsion to the board, and so it's been greatly improved. And I think there are programs on lots of the sites that are running themselves. Students are running themselves. Students
Absolutely.
are talking. So it's been a great improvement, and so thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
And I'd just like to say, Jerry, thank you for the tremendous work that you do. I mean, you go tremendously under-recognized because some of your jobs are the hardest jobs of all, dealing with discipline and also tragedy. So I really want to say thank you for
I appreciate that. I've got great staff. I'm very lucky. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. And public comment from Don Stauffer?
Hello again. All of us want students to remain in school. All of us want to make sure that students, especially students of color, are not needlessly suspended and expelled. Much of what's included in this new proposed matrix is great. And I really look forward to the new district-wide and comprehensive programs on restorative justice. I think we'll all be looking forward to those. I have some concerns with the proposed discipline matrix, especially with the items that are covered by Ed Code 4915C. These are the serious ones. And these are the ones that call for the district to immediately suspend and recommend for expulsion. And this would be possessing, selling firearms, brandishing a knife, attempting sexual assault or battery, and possession of an explosive. In each of these items, the Washington Unified's proposed language allows for alternatives which are not reflected in the state law. Speaking specifically about sexual assault or sexual battery, the proposed language provides for in-school suspension as an option. The example given to me is why this might be appropriate is the case of a high school boy who swats a girl on a behind. Yes, that's an inappropriate act, and I think we'd all agree that swatting a girl on behind does not rise to the level of a sexual assault or battery requiring immediate suspension and expulsion. And I also believe this is an incorrect interpretation of what's considered sexual assault and battery. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights includes physical contact of a sexual nature in the definition of sexual harassment. This lesser category would seem to cover minor offenses such as like swatting a girl's behind and would allow there to be a consequences apart from suspension and expulsion. Serious acts of a sexual nature, on the other hand, should result in immediate suspension or expulsion or recommendation for expulsion. And it's a safety issue if these types of things occur, and there should not be a possibility that these acts are not dealt with severely. Neighboring districts, by the way, Natomas and Winters, maintain the original Ed Code language on these in their matrices. One of the driving forces behind the changes, AB 420, by the way, is expiring in July of 2018, though it may be renewed. So at this time, I would urge the board to send this proposed discipline matrix back for revision and to bring it back at a later time. Thank you.
I think we're going to do that anyway with the
Yeah, yeah. I'd just like to make a comment to my trustee members. If it really depends on your intent with, swatting somebody on the baton. The entire baseball team would be, for the amount of swats on the behind that goes on a baseball team, they would be kicked out for, inappropriate contact. So, I mean, it does, it does have to be qualified with, what are you doing, and in that sense, I do agree with you, Don. But I think you're right that we are going to bring this back anyway, right?
Yeah, we have to. Yeah.
And that's what I would I'm thinking about the victim of sexual assault, and I would want to know exactly what, in-house suspension look like, because that can look like you see the student walking onto campus, you see them going in to a room, and that would make me very uncomfortable for a student who dealt with sexual assault to have to go through that. On the other hand, it could look like a principal escorting a student to a separate location and coming in no contact with any students. And so I think for me, I would want to know a little bit more about what this looks like. And so I would support tabling it either to remove the language of in-house or to clarify what that means on this document, because we refer parents to this document. And so even though we have board policy and other things that are supportive, and I so appreciate all the work staff does, I so appreciate wanting to give some flexibility to administration by doing this. But I am concerned that if I showed this to parents, they also might not understand what that looks like.
I appreciate that bringing up. As you know, I was in charge of suspensions and expulsions in a very large district. So I would actually tend to agree that the mandatory should be aligned with state law, right? So if we must suspend, we should probably just kind of say that outright. But again, since we're tabling, can we just kind of do some research around all the big, we call the big five, right? And interpretation or not, that we should align ourselves with the law.
And I would like to stress that it is defined in board policy what sexual assault or battery is, and it's aligned to penal code. When it's aligned to penal code, no, it is not in-house suspension.
Right. So if we can take, just make sure that the matrix is aligned accordingly. Yeah.
And so what is the board's directive?
table it for now.
Well, we'll table this, but I think that we want to make sure that you're saying in-school suspension is an option, but I don't believe that under 48915, that the in-school is an option. Or you can do the research and get back to us, but.
48915.
Or for 481, like the sexual battery and sexual assault.
Okay, is there anything additional the board would like me to come back with?
Well, as you say that it's defined, and I know we already have language in other places, mine would just be to streamline it so that the language is also somehow attached to this document.
Sounds good.
So that it's easy when we tell parents to go here, because they're not going to necessarily go here and then here and here where we would.
Kobe,
Great.
did you have anything?
No, you're fine.
That's it. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much, Andy. Okay, so now we're on action items. R1, approval of the Washington Unified School District. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, and Don, God, long night already.
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry. R2, approval of single plans for student achievement. Amber Lee. Assistant
Good evening,
Superintendent.
newly
Yes.
elected President Akala,
Thank you.
Board of Trustees, Cabinet, and guests. Tonight, we bring for approval from the board our site single school plans for student achievements, also known in the world of acronyms as SIPSAs. They have been developed in consultation with each site council and in alignment with the Washington Unified School District LCAP. I also want to, at this time, acknowledge and show our appreciation for our Director of PACE, Gwen Dellinger. She's worked tirelessly with our site administration to develop these plans, and it's been a long and arduous process, but one that we feel really meets the needs of our students and each individual school site's different needs. Included in the plans is also the Title I parent involvement policies and our Title I homeschool compacts for each Title I funded school. The plans are hereby submitted for board approval.
Motion to approve.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna. Thank you. Okay, R3, approval of adult education courses of study. Andy Parsons.
This is a great moment for our district because we have 32 courses of study for adult education. This was done by Melissa Baldwin, who is our program specialist for college and career readiness, Renee Collins, who is the director of college and career readiness, and our adult education teachers developed the 32 courses of study that will support our expansion of adult ed, and is aligned to federal program monitoring, which we have coming up, as well as various grants and partnerships. All of the courses of study have been approved by site leadership and presented to the Curriculum Council on December 5th, 2017. And so tonight, we ask for approval of the 32 courses of study.
Motion?
I'm motion, and I really want to thank and appreciate everyone in the Curriculum Council and to kind of putting this together. It was kind of a massive, massive effort, and I apologize I had to leave early, but what I saw was pretty phenomenal and just really great work. So I appreciate all of you.
I really want to thank Renee and all her staff for the incredible work that they did.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And I'll second that and just make a comment that at the city council meeting last night, there was a charter school that operates in our district that also offers adult ed and CTE, and it really grinds me that this is actually happening because it wasn't authorized by us. It's some other district putting in a charter school in our boundaries, and that kind of irks me a little bit.
It's actually right down the street as
Yeah.
well from
It's
Bright.
from Bright. That's actually what was more grinding about it, was that it really kind of irritated me. So with that, I would definitely make a second.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Any other comments?
No,
Okay.
just proud of our staff and the work being done.
Wonderful. Okay, motion to approve?
You have a motion, you have a second.
Vote.
I'm sorry.
We had the motion.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We're just gonna
Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And I
Thank
also
you.
would like to say, because Renee just showed me it tonight, is adult education for the first time has an online portal for registration. And it's great. You can see all the classes online, and it's phenomenal. So thank you. Thank you, Renee, for your leadership. Correct.
Wait,
Correct.
Well, let's promote that. Let's get it out to the community, make sure they know where to sign up.
Absolutely, and thank you for staying so late tonight. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Andy. R4, approval of secondary courses of study. Andy Parsons.
This is also really exciting. We're bringing to the board approval of 22 high school courses. We have not had courses of studies that are aligned to Common Core and the rigor that it takes. And so the staff up at River City, under the guidance of Stan and his leadership team, they wrote these courses of study in about a 4-month period. That is a humongous amount of work. So I really want to thank Stan and his staff. All 22 courses have been approved by the leadership department chairs and was presented to the Curriculum Council on December 5th, 2017.
Thank you, Andy. And I know a component of that is the ethnic studies.
Correct.
I'm very happy. This is something that I think is so important for our district to have. Many districts have ethnic studies already. I know Sacramento has. And I think this is wonderful. It will teach our children to appreciate other cultures. It will definitely teach acceptance and tolerance.
Right.
So this is wonderful, especially in our global economy. It's great for them to
And so
appreciate
you're
each
aware
other.
they're also A through G approved.
Yes.
And it is Stan's vision that right now the ethnic study is elective credit, but they are going to be working towards making it social science credits for A through G.
Thank you. Okay, motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second, again, appreciate the work, Stan, so.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, thank you. Sunshine, the Washington Unified School District's bargaining proposal to California Schools Employee Association.
You're popular tonight,
Riverview, Chapter 168, Michael Reed, thank you.
So with the board's permission, if we could do R5 and R9 while I'm up here, that would be great.
Okay.
But I'll leave it up to you. I can
right.
get up and walk back up if we want. So on R5, the recommended motion is for the board to sunshine the Washington Unified School District's bargaining proposal to CSEA.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, too. Okay, Mike, R9, Sunshine Washington Unified School District proposal to Washington Teachers Association. Thank you.
So the recommended motion is for the board to approve the sunshine of the Washington Unified School District's proposal to the Washington Teachers Association.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mike. R6, approval of the Washington Unified School District's financial statement, independent audit for the fiscal year 2016, 2017. And Kylie.
Lane.
Yes, I was going to say Kylie, thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to ask for approval of the financial statements for the audit for 2016-17.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second. Wait. Second.
Second, she has a second, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Wait.
It's a long time to wait for
Are we
that.
missing?
We already
Am I
did it.
missing?
R6, R7 is also.
R6
budget
is
transfers.
Mike.
So that one is the actual budget transfers. So that actually needs to go after the interim report.
Okay,
So
so
I think
we're
those
on,
just got,
okay, so we're on, yeah, okay. R7, approval of the first interim 2017, 2018 budget transfers. Kylie?
That's
Okay.
reverse.
And
You gotta
it's a
go
reverse, okay, right. So
Right.
R8, approval of the first interim financial report of fiscal review 2016, 2017.
Come on down.
Paul decided.
Just to clarify that, for the record, that we have switched item R.8 to have the first interim report prior to R.7 of the budget transfers. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I start?
Yes.
Well, thank you for having me, and I think I've met all of you, but I'm Paul DeSario. I'm your interim assistant superintendent for business. And I'm just going to be very brief with this report. So this is your first interim report, and what you all know that the requirement is that the state requires each school board to approve a first and second interim report. And should you get in financial trouble, you get to do a third one. but you're not in that state, so you'll just have to do 2 this year. So if we go to the, do I do the slides? Oh, I do them, okay. So there's been, since the budget adoption, there have been a few changes, and we'll get to a little bit more detail on some of them in a minute, but ADA is up by about 116 students, and that's in consistence with what I've seen in your growth. The district is growing. There's a little bit of deficit spending, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Increase in special ed costs and some other adjustments, posting a carryover, and some CT grants the district has received. This is a very, very high-level summary of the conditions. So if you look under the first column, 2017-18, you'll see the difference between revenue and expense, and that there's a deficit of about $2.5 million. But what I want to point out there is that you're doing a textbook adoption, so it's one-time money you're spending, which is a wise way to spend ending balance, and so that's what you're doing there. And then in addition, we've reserved additional dollars for instruction and equipment expenses over the next few months. And then for 17-18, the deficit is quite a bit smaller, and then 19-20, there is no deficit. You're actually slightly in the black. And then below that line, there are some reservations for additional expenditures of ending balance, again, one-time expenditures. So this is kind of really what I said. I just put it in writing here. The district is spending in deficit, wisely using one-time dollars on student needs. And the good news here, because you're using one-time dollars, if we have a financial problem, you can postpone some of these expenditures to a later date. So the bottom line is your district's pretty well financially managed. Special education costs, I thought we'd show this to you. Special ed costs are rising fairly rapidly, and so you probably want to keep an eye, we want to keep an eye on that. I'm not sure that there's a whole lot we can do about it, but you can see that over time they're growing, and that's a concern. Nothing unusual. I work with a lot of other districts around the state. They're all experiencing the same thing. And STRS and PERS increases, as you can see that for next year, 600,000 STRS increase, and the following year nearly the same amount. So, as you probably have been explained to by your former business official, the state imposed these increases. They're not funded, and so you have to pay for them out of your own funds. And
so that's just the increase. That's not the total, right?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, just for that expenditure, that's just the increase. That's not even the total.
That's just the increases. I just showed you the increases. The totals are quite a bit larger, and we could look them up for you, but those are the increases that are happening next year and the following year. And so as the revenue, and maybe this is an important thing, revenue growth is going to slow down pretty rapidly over the next year or so, 2 years maybe, but those costs will continue to rise, and they actually go out further. I just put the next 2 years.
So if I saw it correctly, if you want, if you
I can
don't
go
mind
back,
going back for when, so it's additional, and next year it's about 600,000, and then on top of that, 2019 is then another additional, so $1 million total between the 2 years?
Correct, just on STRS.
I just want to make sure that I understand.
No, you got that right.
STRS alone.
And then your PERS
It's about
costs
1.6 overall, right?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Isn't that about 1.6 overall for
Yes.
the 2 years?
And that's substantial, because as the revenue growth slows down, as the government fully funds your LCFF, you're going to absorb this. This may be all you can do for a couple of years until we get to that it's finally funded. So an interesting statistic on STRS. STRS used to be 8% by the employee and 8% by the employer. Now it's 12% by the employee and 18% by the employer. So it goes from roughly doubles the cost of STRSs over the time that it's this period. It's doubled, and the purpose of it, of course, is to fund that system, which is underfunded. PERS is not as badly underfunded, so. But nevertheless, it is also underfunded.
Right. We can use one-time monies that we get if we get them to pay for a particular year, if exorbitant?
Well, I would recommend against that, and I'll tell you why, because that's an ongoing cost. Once you
I
get,
understand it's an ongoing cost, but if you don't have the money to pay for.
well, then you're going to have to, right?
Right, that's what I'm
You're
saying.
stuck with
It's
it,
like-
but then you're going to have to cut that following year to deal with it.
Right.
So, anyway, maybe go back to the final slide here. So there will be a governor's budget, and the expectation is it's going to have a little bit higher funding than what we're projecting here. So what I would say at this point is just wait to get that done. We'll readjust these numbers, the revenue side, and there may be some expenses. And then from that point, then the board can start talking about next year's budget and employee compensation, those sorts of things. So I'm saying, let's not use these numbers for that. Let's get updated numbers. We can use that as a base, but we need to update the numbers. So with that is really the end of my presentation. Take any questions you might have.
No? Okay, motion to approve, second? Any seconds?
Yeah.
I'll second. I thought there was a second.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And, well, now you're going to do the.
Thank you.
Right, budget.
We do the transfer.
So now we reverse our.
Who's going to do the, Paul, are you doing the? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Kylie. Okay, we had your name on here.
Sorry, you're on
Okay,
all of them,
Kylie.
so we're not sure if it's Kylie or you or.
Yeah, we are working together. I just asked the board to please approve the budget transfers or the revisions that were made for the first interim. We have to ask the county to move our approved budget to our revised budget for first interim.
Okay. You got a motion?
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to go back to 01, approval of certified HR recommendations.
Was there any discussion?
I don't have any comments, I just wanted to pull it so we can individually vote.
Okay.
So just make a
So
motion.
let's, okay, so,
Motion to vote on 01.
I'll make a motion to approve.
okay, all right. So now we do a roll call vote on this one? No, it's just, all right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
opposed.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
And the same with the
So
next one.
it's, okay. And 02, approval of classified HR recommendations, human
So
resources.
moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Oppose.
Very good. All right, so now we are moving to board governance, okay? So S1, first read, Board Policy 5121, grades, evaluation of student achievement. Andy Parsons.
Good evening again. I'm bringing the board Policy 5121, Grades Evaluation of Student Achievement. This is a first read. We're doing it a little bit differently than we usually do our BPs and ARs, because board policy, as you know, really is the vision of the board, sets forth what your vision is to move forward. The AR is how we take your vision and put it into practice. And as Amberly and I talked about it before, is that we're setting up a committee to help support the AR, how to put your vision into practice. So what we're asking the board to do is to do a first read, and then we'll do a second read so that we clearly know the board's vision on grades and evaluation of student achievement before we gather our committee together. So are there any questions on the first read of Board Policy 5121?
I have a question. So this was, we had two trustees, I assume, who gave this recommendation, or is that, how did we strike this language on the first page? A teacher may assign a failing grade.
Those are done by administration, it's done by Ed Services, is we bring that to you as our recommendation, though the board has the opportunity to say, no, we want that in there, or whatever. This is CSBA language.
It's CSBA, not administration.
No,
That's
this
what
is
you're saying. Okay.
CSBA language.
Thank you for clarifying.
And, I'm sorry, I didn't clarify to begin
Okay.
with. So it is CSBA, and what Amberly and I are doing is basically taking out some of the things that we feel should be in the AR, but we really want to know the vision of the board before we go forward with this committee.
And when Clerk Pizzotti was actually on the policy committee, we had actually put this on hold for it to come back. So this is coming back.
Correct.
Because we had
the
it on pause.
And we had the homework policy that the board discussed and passed. And so now that that's done, now we're doing this portion.
Can I ask a question? Did you, anyone else have any questions?
Yeah. You had a question?
So my question with, I assume then if a student is missing many days and has an opportunity to make up that work and is not able to demonstrate because maybe they've missed instruction for too long and they're not able to demonstrate mastery of the content standards, that then they would have, the result would be that their grade would be impacted. But it's not that the grade is impacted simply for missing class, it's that they're not able to, that they might not be able to then show mastery of the content standards? Is that the intent?
Yes, that is the intent, because it does talk about that that students shall have the opportunity to demonstrate the mastery through a variety of methods. And starting at the top of that paragraph, the third paragraph in, it says, a teacher shall base a student's grade solely on the quality of the student's academic work and his or her mastery of course content based on district standards. So when we discussed this in leadership with principals, assistant principals, and directors, they thought that that was a contradiction, that we're first saying that grades are based on academic mastery of standards, but then below it talks about the attendance. Now, obviously, if a student is gone for a number of days, they may not pass because they don't have the mastery of the standards, not because of the attendance itself.
Okay, great, got it, thank you.
All right, so any comments? Okay, so let's move on to S2, approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I'm sorry. S2, approval of revised board policy administrative regulations.
We need to approve it.
Who's-
No, it's just for, it's first.
So Mike?
Okay.
Okay.
This is approval.
So as you know, the district is going through the federal program monitoring process. The Human Resources Department drew the straw for working on the uniform complaint process for the district. So we've done a bit of research, and as well as taking a look at other districts that have been going through this process and have put together a recommendation for an adjustment to this board policy so that we are in alignment with the federal program monitoring. Doing this is preemptive. When we get to the actual monitoring process, the folks that will come in here and do the work with us will recommend these changes, and so if we can make them ahead of time, we're kind of ahead of the game a bit. So I don't know what the board would like to do. I guess I would ask, would we like to go through this, or has it been reviewed, or?
Let's go through it. Or is that fine with everyone? Okay, so Mike?
Okay,
Page
so I can give a general explanation without going into,
Right,
reading
to
everything that's
right.
here. I believe that the changes, there's strike-throughs in red for new and strike-through for things that are being taken out. So the first is on page 183. It's in Board Policy 13-12-3 on community relations. And so what the recommendation is that in alignment with the monitoring request, is that we are expanding the list of programs that can fall under this uniform complaint process. Okay, and then the next recommendation is on page 190. So you'll see in a couple of places inside of this that there is quite a bit of language being added to provide accommodations for our community members who maybe aren't able to write a complaint. And so there's pieces in here that it explain that if there's a certain disability or a literacy issue, that the staff is required to provide support to make sure that that complaint is given or taken, I should say. So that is what the additions in D and E. And then there's some mention in part of E as well that if it involves any retaliation or unlawful discrimination, that we will also take appropriate measures to address that. So that's 190. On page 191, item J, there's an addition here that we are expanding, the appeal rights would be expanded to the respondent as, and the complainant already has that, but now the respondent also has the ability to appeal if they feel that perhaps they were wrongly accused or the findings were not accurate, so they have an ability to do that. Page 192 at the top. Again, this is a specific call out to providing support for folks who might need support in filing a claim. Again, an accommodation discussion. Page 194, this is probably the report of findings. And so it's still a 60-day cycle to get to a final report, but there's a discussion in here of 40 calendar days. So we have a little bit of a switch here because we're trying to build in the window of time for the person to the person who's filing the complaint to have a window of time in which to appeal to the board, because that's a new step in the process. So they have a window of time to appeal to the board, and then still have time for staff to write a final response to the complainant. So it closes up our window a little bit, but at the same time, it's building in the window for the whole process to be completed in 60 days. And then I think the last item, 197 and 198. There's discussion on item 7 around it's protections around retaliation and unlawful discrimination. Down in the third paragraph under 7, it's expanding the scope of these disciplinary actions to talk about if the complaint is regarding student fees being charged, or if there's a course period without educational content complaints, which is kind of a new one for me. And then at the bottom on 197, it's the description of the appeals process. So this is a whole new piece here that does allow for a complaint then to be first appealed to the school board as opposed to going straight to the California Department of Education. So we have to build that into our process here as a district in order to be in compliance. And so we'll have to work through the logistics of that as a board and as a leadership team.
Any comments? Okay, so we need a motion to approve. We don't?
He's asking for approval. He's asking
Approval?
for approval.
Approval? Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now,
Wait.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to abstain just because I was disclosed of this, the FPM investigation of this at the Department of Ed.
Okay, thank you. So we'll note that. Just really quickly, under board governance, for our January meeting, we will be doing committee assignments. Thank you.
And I have one other piece that was an oversight, but many boards, they do their board handbook. Not that there would necessarily be changes, but just to do one look. So we're making sure that we're looking at it once a year to make sure that it's all in compliance, so we feel good about it. So I would say our board handbook in January.
Okay.
I agree with that, but if you look at our January meeting, there's a lot for our governance. And I would like to suggest maybe the first meeting in February and to bring it along with the board evaluation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
our January 18th is.
We have a special board meeting in January. It's a great idea. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay. All right, so we'll move that to February then. Very good. So future board agenda items, T1, 2017 California Dashboard and WSD Accountability Progress. We've January 18th of 2018. T2, the Community Eligibility Provision Update. T3, Update After School and Child Care Programs. T4, Board Policies and Administrative Regulations, Series 4200, Personnel. And that's going to be a full, that's going to be full. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Motion
to
adjourn.
Second?
You need a motion.
I saw someone
First.
second. All right.
First, second, third.
All right.
Aye.
Excellent. Aye. Thank you.